municipality to reticulate that water from our resource.
PwC senior economist Kandi Bayi says the informal sector is seeing an increase in employment as more people open small businesses due to the high unemployment rate. Statistics South Africa says the unemployment rate decreased to 32.1% in the third quarter of 2024 from 33.5% in the second quarter. The quarterly labour force survey shows that the number of persons employed in the formal sector increased by 122,000 in the third quarter, and the informal sector employment increased by 165,000 over the same period. Pai elaborates.
I think actually more of the numbers seem to suggest that more jobs were created in the informal sector. And it's important to recognize what the informal sector is. Those small businesses were probably not paying tax, or those individual workers or people who work for their own accounts. And that's an important trend that has happened actually since the global financial crisis, certainly since the COVID incidents, because that was somewhere where everybody was told, look, it looks like you're on your own, you're going to have to look for a job, so you have to create employment. And I think many people have been able to do that.
The city of Tshwane says it is working on replacing the 33 bus operators dismissed for taking part in an unprotected strike in May this year. The decision to fine them was taken after they appeared before a disciplinary hearing last month. The city spokesperson, Lindela Mashego, says they are pleading with commuters to be patient as the dismissal of the bus operators has led to a shortage in daily shifts.
Yesterday, 11 November 2024, 128 drivers reported for duty to honor their shifts, meaning there were 32 less buses to service the routes. It is, however, encouraging to note that through TPS management's intervention, the number has been reduced to 14. This after 18 drivers were sourced from a team of quality controllers who are qualified bus drivers and administrators who were bus drivers before being promoted to do administration work.
International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola says President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed Ibrahim Rasool as ambassador to the United States. Rasool was an ambassador to the U.S. from 2010 to 2015. Lamola says Pretoria aims to strengthen its relations with Washington, D.C. In his address to the media in Pretoria, Lamola says he went to America before elections in that country and discussed various issues between the two countries.
We think that the challenges we will be able to confront, engage, and find a mutual beneficial solution between the two countries as we move forward, particularly on issues of trade, AGOA, PEPFAR, and other mutual beneficial programs.
In news further afield, a hit-and-run attack at a sports center in the southern Chinese city of Zhuhai has killed 35 people and severely injured 43. Police have arrested a 62-year-old man. China's internet censors already appear to be erasing any mention of the incident. The BBC's Laura Bicker has more details.
Witnesses said the man rammed through the sports centre fence and then appeared to deliberately run down a number of people who were exercising on a sports track at the time. Police in Zhuhai say he attempted to self-harm with a knife at the scene and he is now in a coma, unable to be questioned. They said he was upset at his divorce property settlement. President Xi has demanded that the best treatment is given to those who have been injured.
Recapping the top story, Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majodina has ascribed Gauteng's water supply disruptions to, among others, the growing population. Majodina delivered a statement in the National Assembly on water scarcity in the country. I am Ondalambana for SAFM News headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Chiefs announced new venue for Royal AM clash and Emotional Sinner accepts year-end #1 trophy. More details at 3:30.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm back in Joburg after being away in Cape Town for the last 3 days, and you know you're in Joburg when you get right back into a summer thunderstorm, because yes, it's suddenly all that. So it's summer, certainly in many parts of the country outside of the Cape, but they have different sorts of rain. But you know that it's been overcast, it's been strong rains, and a whole lot more. We'll talk to AfriForum coming up first up in terms of what they see as the selective ban of these vendors at schools. That comes up in a few minutes' time, and Ibrahim Rasool is now appointed the ambassador to the USA. Once again, we'll talk to him. We'll also chat to Bulelani Balabala about the township economy. Don't miss that. And we'll pick up on the latest stats around unemployment from Stats SA. That's among some of the bigger issues, right? I'll tell you what. Let me just tell you one of the things that I think we need to reflect on here. First of all, in terms of we as people. So I went to Cape Town primarily because of a family reunion, and so going to Cape Town for a family reunion I think was interesting, and this is the point I want to bring up. Okay, it was my wife's family. Okay, but in going there, there were about 300 people, and I said, outside the fun and the joy and the merriment and the reacquainting with people, which is great, right? One of the great things about families coming together in these reunions, or unions as I would call it, in this case, I'll call it the Latif Union, was the ability for families to mobilize. And there where I am, and suddenly the talk is less about the fun and the games and playing rugby and that sort of thing, but more about, hold it, what happens if we come together? What happens if we set up boreholes for the communities that need boreholes? What happens if we set up a trust? What happens if we try and assist our own families? What happens if we try and assist the communities who are downtrodden and we as families can come together? So suddenly, a reunion, which at its core was just meeting and connecting, becomes so much more powerful. And that got me thinking about a chat I had with someone who is a Zulu-speaking person a few years ago. He made the point and he said, Ashraf, you know what? I have to work so hard in my life. And I said, why? He said, because I've made a commitment that no family member of mine must sink into poverty. Not one of them. I need to be extra busy with my businesses, show greater acumen, because I see my power of influence. And that therefore goes back to my point about these reunions. One of the things we must not underestimate is the powers of families coming together to support one another in a way that even government cannot do. And I'm talking about all families from across the country. We can all do that, and hopefully this feedback can inspire you in your own way to say, what are you doing to invest in the overall infrastructure of your own family to ensure that none of your family members fall by the wayside, and whatever difficulties they have, hey, you're there for them. It's possible. It can be done. That's called not family reunions. That's called family union. Well, that's my point. You certainly can tell me yours. Now, to call in, it's 086 000 2032. As always, you can tell us what you think are the biggest issues that moves the National Pulse today, and you can WhatsApp us to 0614 104 107. Let's start with AfriForum. So they have a position. You know, we've been talking about this around... you know this, there's been schools that has been, and vendors at schools and even outside have been selling off foods or sweets, and some of them are poisoned, and people have been ill and others have lost their lives, and it has been a tragedy that we haven't quite got to grips with. And one of the ways that the Gauteng Department of Education has implemented to try and just stem this flow of these potential poisonous hazards to school learners is to just clamp down on vendors at schools. That means at this point in time, it happened since last week, no school vendors in Gauteng can sell inside, outside, in the precinct to school children. That is a way that it will clamp down. Of course, I also thought about it myself to say, well, what about the economic factors around that? Now, AfriForum believes they've asked for the lifting of ban on food sales by approved vendors. So they're saying approved vendors, well, they should be allowed to continue trading. Let's try and understand what's their motive around this with Ilana Bailey, who's the head of Cultural Affairs and Education at AfriForum. Ilana, good of you to connect to the National Pulse. Hi.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So explain your premise. What are you trying to say and get to?
Well, we are really concerned about this whole issue because the whole time, even though this has been an issue that's been quite prominent in the media for weeks now, we hear about more and more children who get very ill or who even die. And we really feel very concerned about school safety. But at the same time, we feel that a one-size-fits-all approach isn't the solution to the problem at schools. So on the one hand, you have school tuck shops and verified and accredited vendors on the school property. And on the other hand, you have traders and vendors who come and go outside of schools. Now, everyone has been banned, including the registered and accredited vendors on the school property, which means that if a parent cannot provide a lunch for a child for school or even for activities after school, or if the child is part of an informal feeding scheme where usually the tuck shop provided meals for that child, now suddenly they have no access to any food at the school premises. And we feel the probable thing that's going to happen is that they will slip out and they will try and get a snack or food from outside.
Well,
so we feel
in terms
that
of
the risk is actually more.
Okay, so but in terms of your understanding, how many schools in Gauteng, because we're talking Gauteng specifically, right, where they have vendors within the schools are effectively vendors that are not registered? That means they haven't been approved by the schools. I mean, do you know, is it 10%, 20%, 30% more?
Well, we are not sure at this stage, but it seems to be that all vendors stopped trading, even the accredited ones at this stage. So a lot of children are complaining to us that they don't have food.
No, but I hear that. I'm saying I understand there's been a blanket ban on all vendors. I'm saying in terms of what you're saying vendors who've been approved already before, at this point in time, they're all suspended at this point in time. Now I'm saying to you, how many vendors have been approved in the past across the city, across the province, where they've now been suspended? That means what percentage of all traders within school grounds, let's call it that, are actually approved vendors or not?
The formal vendors are approved, so they have to have registration, they have to have safety and health certificates, etc. Informal, you don't know. Usually you have some enterprising child who sells something in break time, so that's a whole different kettle of fish. And then, of course, outside you have the same situation. If people operate from a shop, then they have to have registration. The safety and health inspectors visit them regularly, we hope. But if it is an informal seller who basically just arrives and sells sweets, then it's very hard to manage that person. And they can disappear very quickly if they see inspectors coming. So I think that's why we say a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. We have to distinguish between people who have gone through all the necessary requirements and who meet all the registration requirements to operate
safe. But isn't the argument from the Gauteng Education Department is that at this point in time it's not permanent? It is just to stem the tide in terms of poisonous foods being sold to children until they get the hang of it. It could be a few days, it could be a week, it could be slightly longer. It's not permanent for everybody. And if we go the other route of yours, which is let the approved vendors continue trading, it does make the assumption that the approved vendors are not guilty of selling any foods that are poisonous. That means they've been investigated already. It makes that assumption, which may be incorrect.
Well, it's easy, as I said, to inspect them because they have a fixed address. So if any complaints arise, it's very easy to stop them from selling immediately. While with people outside, it's more difficult to find out whether there's a problem and where it comes from. And at this stage, it's very confusing because on the one hand, we hear a lot of allegations about what is called now food-borne diseases, In other words, where you have food that has spoiled and has been sold to children, and where children have been poisoned, as was announced by the department in Eldorado Park last week. So normally a school vendor on a property will not be selling poison as well, while vendors outside sell poison. So,
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I'm just saying,
our main concern is still that if you don't have a lunch packed for you, if you don't have a mum who gets up early, who has access to food and who packs you a lunch, then you're going to get hungry during the day, and then you are exposed to anybody who sells.
Okay, I hear you. I'm still saying, if you go back to the example of spaza shops now, and it's been a big discussion for weeks on end, right, around some of them selling expired goods, and therefore some of them could be poisonous or not, right? Many of them could actually be registered, and they're still falling foul of that. So I'm still making the point that there's no way that one can make the assumption that the vendors within schools who are approved by the school would be completely clear. Gauteng's, the department's point of view is, for now, we have to increase greater checks and balances across the board, and therefore to do that we have to clamp down on all of them immediately, making the assumption that at this point in time all of them are potentially in a position where they could be selling foods or sweets or other sorts of things to children that could be potentially dangerous. Isn't that the case?
Well, it seems to be the case, and it seems to be that they are trying to err on the side of caution. But I think it's a crazy approach. For that same argument, we can then say all shops that sell food must be closed down for the next few months until we find a way forward. Because for the same argument, you can buy food from a supermarket or from anywhere together with your parents, and it still might be a product that has expired. Or we had the listeriosis outbreak a few years ago, which was not in spaza shops and not at school tuck shops, but was actually in major supermarkets. So we feel that, as I say, this creates more problems. You not only have the problem of the child who might buy from someone who sells really bad food outside the school, but the child might slip out, might be in traffic. It creates a lot of other dangers, stranger danger, etc. So rather keep the tuck shops on the school premises open, check them very rigorously, start checking them, and follow up with the rest later on. Get the health inspectors there as quickly as possible.
Okay, isn't that the argument? Yeah, isn't that the argument? Isn't that the argument? This, right? To pick up on your point, that we can't assume anyone is guilty. That means rather the informal traders and the more formal vendors on the inside, all of them must be allowed to trade. But what needs to happen is there has to be increased vigilance about what they're selling. Isn't that the way to go, as opposed to a blanket ban or even a semi-blanket ban across the board?
Definitely. I think that is where our great responsibility lies, and also to educate people. Educate your children about the way that they should handle poison, and that they should be on the lookout for poison. If you see somebody selling poison and food from similar containers next to each other, be careful, don't buy there. And I think it's a whole opportunity for us to start looking at more aspects of keeping our children safe, not only on school premises, but in general.
Okay, that's where we can leave it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. Indeed, Ilana Bailey, Head of Cultural Affairs and Education at AfriForum. AfriForum, in this case, calling for the lifting of the ban on food sales by the approved vendors. They're saying unapproved vendors, they could be banned, but the approved ones, please don't ban them. Let them continue trading. So where do you fit in on this one here? Do you have an opinion? I'd like to hear it. 0614 104 107. You can send us a voice note. You can send us a text message. You can also call in to 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. As always, we reflect the issues, the biggest issues that moves the national pulse. And my encouragement to you is let's have the conversations that moves all of us, you and I, all at the same time. What about Ebrahim Rasool, former ambassador to the USA, and now Ebrahim Rasool, ambassador to the USA? We'll talk to him next.
South Africa and India will produce hot performances as they both want to triumph during their third T20 contest. The visitors want victory to ensure a joyful tour, but hosts Mzansi refuse to fold their arms. What a summer without cricket! Catch Catch the heated third T20 international action between South Africa and India on Wednesday, 13 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Alan. I'm 71 years of age and I live in Douglasdale. I'm paying 554 Rand a month for my 2022 Nissan Magnite.
Want a car insurance premium that'll blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote. It's quick, it's easy, and it could save you hundreds of rands every month. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to OUTsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Blow your mind, not your paycheck. SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted Best Car Insurer 2023 by the Star and Pretoria newsreaders. Here's Yusuf.
It just shows that OUTsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice. The SAFM playwriting competition is back. After receiving hundreds of entries last year from South African writers of different ages and ethnic groups sharing their stories, now the time is yours. It's your story. You decide. SAFM invites all writers to explore the medium of sound, the theatre of the mind, and to create a 1-hour radio play in English. Get writing now and submit your play before the 3rd of February 2025 for a chance to win one of 3 large cash prizes. For more information, visit safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, let's get to a significant development in the country and abroad, and that is that concerning Ebrahim Rasool. So at one stage he was former ambassador to the USA. I'll introduce him now once again as Ebrahim Rasool, ambassador to the USA. Good to connect with you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and with all of your SAFM listeners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's got a nice ring to it for you. Second time coming.
Yeah. It's daunting, but the ring helps make it possible.
Okay. So we'll talk about why you were asked. Let me ask you this. Why did you say yes?
Look, I have a special interest in South Africa's relationship with the United States, having spent 4.5 years there as ambassador and another 2 years as a scholar at Georgetown. We've worked hard to restore the South African relationship after the economic meltdown of 2007-2008, to build up trade and investment. We lived in the glow of the World Cup 2010, the sadness of Nelson Mandela's passing, etc. So I think that it is a very important relationship, but it is so subject to misconceptions and misunderstandings. And that creates a volatility that I think is unnecessary, especially given our mutual dependence and mutual benefit that we can be to each other.
Okay, I hear that, but I mean, it still doesn't answer your own position. I mean, you were there before. You're now in the country. You get asked again to serve as ambassador. When you think about it, like you have other choices. I mean, you're part of the development bank as well. I understand, right? Why would you say yes to this? What triggers your imagination to say I need to go?
Look, after the election, I declined a position in Parliament because precisely I understood where I was in my life. I enjoyed absolutely the impact we could make with the Development Bank of Southern Africa on key infrastructural issues. But what it says to me is that this is for me a little bit of national service. I think we don't need someone to go and learn the ropes, how Congress works, who's in State Department, how you approach the White House. Those are things that we have made part of my DNA, and when the President and the Minister asked, I could not refuse, because I think I understand the crucial nature of this bilateral relationship and its impact on the geopolitics of the world.
It's interesting you say that, because I mean it does come at a time when the position of the USA, particularly around some of the key hotspots, I mean there's a change of leadership, we know that, but also in terms of some of the key hotspots in the world, Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, as well as his position with South Africa, is rather tenuous. So does that suggest to you that South Africa needed to send one of the big hitters to deal with clearly a very difficult time in the world, particularly in the relationship between the USA and South Africa?
I think South Africa needs an explainer-in-chief for some of its positions. South Africa needs someone who could sequence a series of values that we hold dear, whether it's solidarity in Palestine, whether it is livelihoods that depend on U.S. investments and trade. So those are all values that I think exist. And then South Africa needs someone to advance its interests. For example, on the trade agreements like AGOA, it's 600 U.S. companies operating here. And so it's a whole series of balls that need to be juggled. And I think that it needs a little bit of an experienced hand at this moment, especially given the changes in the White House in the USA, the changes in Congress, which are so phenomenal that I think, I'm just so happy that the President and the Minister entrusts me with this task so that I can try and do the best for South Africa.
Well, interesting. Minister Lamola said, and I'm quoting him, he says, the President had to appoint someone who is able to also engage with the various think tanks in the U.S. and the other important platforms that influence U.S. foreign policy. So here's a question to you. To what degree can you actually influence the lobbies that influence U.S. foreign policy, particularly with regard to South Africa and the other issues that South Africa has taken a stand on?
I think we've got to change the lens from arguing to engagement. We've got to change the lens from defeating the other in argument to persuading about the veracity of South Africa's position. We've got to be able to represent South Africa's presidency of the G20 in probably the biggest G20 nation in the world. And so I see myself as being an extension of that role, of engaging, as the Minister says, not just the think tanks, not just Congress, but civil society and the U.S. public. And we've always had a resonance with the U.S. society from the days of apartheid, and we've got to be able to awaken that love for South Africa and reposition South Africa as a rational, moral superpower in the world.
And how would you do that? And I say that at a time when you know there's been positions within the U.S. Congress about a rethink about policy to South Africa, others talking about a rethink about AGOA, purely, amongst other things, on South Africa's position regarding Israel and taking Israel to the ICJ, right? How then would you turn that around?
I don't think we want to turn around South Africa's decision on the ICJ. That has to be explained because it arises from deeply held values arising out of our own experience of oppression. So we're not compromising on that, but we are saying that it has to be nuanced, in which South Africa understands that we've gone a long distance in this, but we also need to be able to understand the values of livelihoods that affect our people. I mean, there's 31% of our population unemployed. We can't afford to lose AGOA. We can't afford for any of the 600 U.S. companies to close down. And fortunately, we are going to have in the White House a leader who understands the language of transaction. We need to be able to say that when we choose, when we are part of BRICS, we don't not choose the USA, we choose both, because both have benefits, but that the USA has been a relationship of choice because you buy manufactured goods from us, not raw commodities. And so I think that that's the transactional language we've got to be able to enter. We possess so much of the critical minerals of the world.
I think we've just said that. You still there? No, we've just lost. Okay.
Value to this. How can you help us to add value to these minerals so that the US can benefit from it as part of the fourth industrial revolution?
You've got lots to think about. I wish you well, Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool, and I'm sure when you get there, we will certainly talk to you and see what has happened around the changing of that narrative. Thank you for your time and best wishes on that new position, Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool, Ambassador to the USA. Again, just like Donald Trump, President of the USA. Again, there you are, deja vu. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Ondela Imbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. News headlines. The Garden Route District Municipality in the Western Cape says raids on spaza shops in the region will be ongoing to check for compliance and violations. Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majodina has ascribed Gauteng's water supply disruptions to, among others, the growing population. And the International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamula says half of the Sudanese population is in dire need amid the continuing conflict. He was addressing the media. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound has a crash reported before Crown Interchange, and the N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash near Van Buren Road. In KZN, the N2 southbound is closed at Joyner Road. That's due to structural damage at the Mbongontwini River Bridge. Expect diversions and heavy delays. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Mpumalanga, the N4 westbound has a crash near Olifantsrivier, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N2 inbound has a crash near Mowbray Main Road. That's causing heavy delays. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound queuing towards Voortrekker Road. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit, and Plain Street is closed at National Parliament. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Tumi, let's get to the Amakosi.
A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Kaizer Chiefs have announced a new venue for their Betway Premiership match against Royal AM, which is later this month. In a statement, Chiefs said that the match will no longer be played at FNB Stadium as initially scheduled. Now, the Soweto Giants have decided to take their encounter to the new Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane, and the rest of the details for the match remains the same. It will still take place on the 30th of November at 5:30. Elsewhere, PGMOL have suspended Premier League official David Koo with immediate effect. This is after a video which remains unverified appearing to show the referee making derogatory comments about Liverpool and their former manager Jurgen Klopp was widely circulated on social media yesterday. Absolutely unfortunate, because obviously this raises more questions about referees' decision making, and perhaps also speaking on how some are biased towards or against certain clubs. I'm not sure if you saw that clip.
What did he say?
I can't repeat it, but he was using vulgar language, and it was towards Liverpool and specifically towards Jurgen Klopp.
Okay, so obviously that's not acceptable. What's the issue here?
So the issue here is, how can a ref allow himself to be recorded saying those things against a club and a manager? And I think for him, he was saying that Jurgen Klopp was saying he didn't allow the team to benefit from some of the fouls that I think it was against Ipswich, if I'm not wrong. But for me, I think a referee being recorded saying those things about clubs, don't they have workshops? I'm sure they workshopped against...
Well, I think the bigger issue, of course they should have it, I would think so, but the bigger issue is that there's been some borderline decisions made against Liverpool Football Club, and with this referee in particular, and there's been others with other teams, right? If a referee, recorded or not, is one thing. If a referee has got prejudice, he can't be a referee
at all.
He can be a player. The referee means something. The word referee means certain things. That's not a player. He can't be a player, so he can't be a referee. So, yeah. That's it, I think.
However, there is a rule in the Premier League that if a referee is a fan of a specific club, they're not allowed to ref in any game that involves that club. So, hey, we'll definitely keep you up to date with this one. Elsewhere, Japan can make a major step towards the 2026 World Cup over the next week if they can negotiate away test at Indonesia and China in the space of 5 days. Song Heung-min's South Korea will also look to close on a spot at the showpiece in North America as they travel to Kuwait on Thursday and then face Palestine and Jordan next week. Meanwhile, Hervé Renard takes charge of Saudi Arabia for the first time since returning to the job. In rugby, the All Blacks have suffered a double injury blow for Saturday's clash with France, with flanker Sam Cane and winger Mark Tellier both ruled out. Cane, who sustained a head cut in New Zealand's recent victory over Ireland, will now undergo head injury assessment protocols, while Tellier, who was a standout performer in the 2023 World Cup opener against France and scored 2 tries in the opening fixture against LeBlanc, is sidelined with a hand injury. In cricket, Sri Lanka's cricket board have named former South African batsman Neil McKenzie as a consultant coach ahead of their test tour of South Africa. The 48-year-old will work with Sri Lankan players from tomorrow for just over a week. And McKenzie's playing career highlights include sharing a 415-run stand with Graham Smith against Bangladesh back in 2008, which was the highest ever opening partnership in Test history. Finally, in tennis, Italy's Jannik Sinner was awarded the year-end world number 1 trophy during the ongoing ATP finals in Turin, Italy. Now, Sinner is now the 19th player to win the year-end world number 1 honor and the 29th overall to world number 1 in his career. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
And we'll talk more referees and whatever else. In fact, here's another one. Can you be a commentator and support a football team? We'll talk about that next.
South Africa and India will produce hot performances as they both want to triumph during their third T20 contest. The visitors want victory to ensure a joyful tour, but hosts Mzansi refuse to fold their arms. What a summer without cricket! Catch the heated third T20 international action between South Africa and India on Wednesday, 13 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's talk about a significant announcement. We have daily announcements, right? And that regards South Africa's unemployment rate. Now, I understand that the unemployment rate, which gets released by Stats SA, well, they've said that the official unemployment rate now is decreased by 1.4% from 33.5% to 32.1%. And there's more. Let's try and understand exactly what we've uncovered and whether we should give that a thumbs up or not with Risenga Maluleke, who's the Statistician General of South Africa. Good chatting as always, and thanks for connecting to the National Pulse.
Greetings, Ashraf, and let me greet the listeners.
Thank you so much. Right. Okay, you've got some important numbers. I've touched on that unemployment rate. Maybe tell us more about that.
Well, one of the things that we have seen between the second and the third quarter is that we had employment sitting at 16.7 million. It increased by 294,000 straight to 16.9 million. And the unemployment decreased. It was sitting at 18.4 million. It dropped by 373,000 to 8 million. So now when you see employment increasing and unemployment increasing, but not as fast as or as high as employment, you are likely to see the rate decreasing. However, when employment increases and unemployment decreases, you are definitely going to have a rate of unemployment decreasing. So in this regard, the headline unemployment rate decreased by 1.4 percentage points from 33.5 to 32.1%. But that is what we call the narrow definition. We also have to look at the expanded definition, which gives the overall employment challenge in the country. Because then out of the, over and above the 8 million unemployed people, there are still another 3.4 million who are discouraged work seekers, and another 800,000 who didn't look for employment but said, if employment came, we would have taken it. That brings us 12.2 to what hence the expanded unemployment rate, 41.9.
Okay, I think we've just lost that connection just for the moment. Let me see if we can reconnect with Risenga Maluleke, who's the Statistician General of South Africa. He made an interesting point. Besides the official unemployment rate, the expanded one still hovers above the 41% mark, and that is significant. Do we have you there once again, Risenga?
Ashraf, I could hear you clearly when you said you lost my connection.
Okay, I'm not too sure why that may be the case, right? Okay, so in terms of the expanded rate that you spoke about, has that changed? Has that gone down as well or not? Because you could actually have the official going down and the expanded going up.
The expanded unemployment rate also went down because what happens is that the number of the unemployed has gone down. So it is the biggest contributor. The expanded, the discouraged work seekers do not contribute as much because they are always lower than the active work seekers who are unemployed.
Okay, got that. Do you then also break it down further, let's say into categories like youth and maybe geographies or regions?
Certainly, young people 15 to 24 years are vulnerable to labor markets. Their unemployment rate is sitting at 60.2%. Whereas if you move further, you look at 25 to 34 years, their unemployment rate is sitting at 40.4%. And when you combine them, 15 to 34 years, you sit with an unemployment rate of 45.5%. And of course, when you look at women, Black African women are much more vulnerable. Their unemployment rate is sitting at 38.1%. Now, when we look at youth, we also look at young people 15 to 24 years who are not in employment, education, or training. Out of 10.3 million young people aged 15 to 24 years, 3.5 million are not in employment, education, or training, and that returns a net rate of 34.2%. Now, Ashraf, if we look at provinces, the Northwest had generally overtaken the Eastern Cape in terms of unemployment, and I'm talking about official. But in this quarter, we see the Eastern Cape leading again with unemployment, and it is sitting in the excess of 37%, which when you look at the expanded, the Northwest still leads because of the mining industries, especially around your Rustenburg area, which tend to contribute a lot more to discouraged work seekers.
Okay, so Putting all that together, is there any other final point you can share with us? I know you won't give much opinion, but certainly other pointers we should be considering here.
Well, what we have seen is that the economy in the previous 2 quarters hasn't shown much growth. And an economy that is not growing will not create jobs. So we are going to see, obviously you can't read it from my voice, my smiles or my frowns, but in 2 weeks' time we are coming back with, on the 3rd of December, we're coming back with the performance of the economy from the GDP side. So we will see how the economy is performing.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Well, I'll tell you what, it's like part celebration, but as you've mentioned, or the statistician general has mentioned, when you look at the other numbers, particularly amongst that age groups, 15 to 24, 25 to 34, 66% at 15 to 24, 40% 25 to 34, combined average 45%. Wow. So not only are so many South Africans unemployed, but particularly in the most significant sector in South African society, you've got almost half of them unemployed. That is that's a crisis. And if that's, I'm surprised whether, was it ever an election issue? Whatever it is, it's an issue. It's an issue that has to be resolved, and we find daily we talk about it, and I therefore put it to you, like, seriously, besides talking when political parties are arguing, what is it we can do to ensure that we can address that urgently so that we can change those numbers, or what they say, flip it as quickly as possible, especially in the age groups of 15 going all the way up to 34. If that doesn't get addressed, I don't know. 086 000 2032. Let's hear from you. What for you moves the national pulse? What gets your pulses racing? You do have your fingers on the pulse, I know that. 0614 104 107, text or voice notes.
Only the team that plays the best cricket on the day will enjoy the last laugh. South Africa and India are both hungry to wrap the T20 International Series on the highest possible note. What a summer without cricket! Do not miss out on the 4th and final T20 International battle between South Africa and India on Friday, 15 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000 with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So here's a thought, and I don't necessarily have an answer. I'm not pronouncing it. I'm asking a question. We have this high unemployment rate, particularly from 15 up to up to 40 or 35, right? And we also have minimum wage. There's been this argument that if we drop minimum wage, more people will be employed no matter what. Would you consider that, or would you feel that that would be exploitative and therefore rather stay outside of the job market versus the other scenario, which is take whatever you can get, because the most significant thing for a person who's unemployed is to just get in, to basically be able to knock that door down, to open the door, and then what happens after that is how you will really grow. I wonder what you may make of that. I'd like to get your opinions on that. And perhaps as we talk about unemployment, what for you, just emotionally, what is your one word that for you best describes your understanding of the unemployment rate? Whatever that one word is, you can give an explanation thereafter. One word that best describes the unemployment rate. Let's hear about that. In the meantime, there's an issue in Lenasia, and I understand Lenasia South area. There's been tensions running high all morning, and that is because of between residents on the one hand and the Joburg Metro. And why? Well, I understand that Joburg water officials were conducting an operation to disconnect illegal water connections in the Pumla Makashi area in Lenasia. So there's a to and fro between them and the people living there. Let's find out more with the SABC News reporter Monique Lewis. Monique, hi.
Oh, good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and to your listeners.
Thank you. So, of course, when you see these issues around, service delivery interruptions to people who can't afford it, there's bound to be tensions. What can you tell us about what you've seen today?
Well, thank you so much for the question. When we were at the scene at Phumla Maqashi in the residential area. There were disgruntled residents protesting for. They say that the officials or Joburg Water need to reconnect their water, as they came this morning around about 9 a.m. to disconnect any illegal connections.
Okay, so they came to disconnect, I suppose, because they haven't paid them, right?
It's not that they haven't paid them, but they have been connected illegally. And the residents do say they are more than willing to pay. I'm speaking to one of the community leaders of the top 7 committee who oversees the area, Spoon Zogu. He said that they had a meeting, 2 months ago with Joburg Water and the City Council in order to make way for not water tankers, but rather pipelines to be put in order for them to have proper connection.
Okay, and one thing is saying, okay, we will be okay with it. What then happened once they were disconnected? What happened next?
So what happened next, after they disconnected the water, the residents came because the whole area of Phumla Maqashi has no water, be it shops, be it schools, nothing in the area. There's no water drop coming out of any tap at this moment, from what we have heard from residents and community leaders.
So why would there be no water across the board? I mean, surely you'd go, individually place to place once you've identified an illegal connection. For example, where does the schools fit into this?
All right, from what we have gathered today at the scene, Ashraf, is that when we spoke to the community leaders, they said to us that this water connection has been going on for about 7 years. So they made an agreement, and along with Joburg Water, that okay, guys, we are connected illegally, but however, before you guys disconnect us, please give us an alternate option. In terms of water tankers or whatever the case may be, Jojo tanks, before you disconnect the illegal connection. So basically the entire area of Phumla Maqashi has been connected illegally. So it has been going on for 7 years, but they were in talks with Joburg Water, as we have also spoke to them, the community leaders. We spoke to them, and they did say to us that no, there were back and forth meetings, and Joburg Water, they came to an agreement, but today it's a different story. Also speaking to the councillor was also called when everything had erupted, where protests were happening, looting was happening. So the councillor had also been there, and to her surprise, what we have heard is that she didn't know that this would be taking place today. She knew nothing about it, and she had to go for her safety because her safety was in line, where residents were of this issue that is happening today, where Joburg Water is now disconnecting the illegal water that we have.
Okay, so if tensions were rising high earlier on, you're not there now, are you?
No, we're en route back to work.
Okay.
But community members were dispersed back to their households. Traffic is freely flowing because what we have also heard, speaking to the community members, they are now actually going to meet with the city council speaker or the city of the Johannesburg to actually find a way forward as to how did they come and disconnect illegally. How did they come and disconnect the illegal water connections without notification? So they have got there, and they will have a community meeting tomorrow. So that was the way forward before we left.
Okay, and when you left, or even now, what you've heard anecdotally, is there still tension, or they've simmered down, keeping in mind, understand, there clearly is no water, right?
Yes, there is no water, but there are angry residents still, but they have simmered down due to the community leaders telling them that there will be an engagement held tomorrow, but for now they are going to speak to the higher officials to actually get an understanding and get into agreement as to what has transpired today.
Okay, let's leave it at that. I'll tell you what, that is a story that's so important. Monique Lewis, thank you for your time, the SABC News reporter covering the issue. But yeah, it is. I mean, so there was illegal connections. I mean, these are mainly indigent people, my understanding of it would be. So they come to some sort of an arrangement and a deal around what they will do next, and then they get cut off without even the councillors being aware of it. Now, that clearly would be an issue. And now you basically have a recipe again for civil discontent. What happens next? How soon will these talks continue when you have homes, you have businesses, and you have schools in that area all without water? Let's get some comment from you on some of the earlier conversations we've had.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the SAFM listeners. You know, surprisingly, I never thought in a million years that I would ever agree with AfriForum. But on this one, I'm fully behind them. Thanks. This is Lusuko in the Eastern Cape.
Okay, got that. I don't have to say much more than that, do I? Right, here's another comment.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Tabama Tabani here. The argument between myself and the lady from AfriForum is very simple. Gauteng needs to close all the sponsorship, legal or illegal, because for now we don't know where the diseases are coming from. Simple as that. And that thing is temporary, like you said. I don't see an argument in what we are saying with the lady there. Thank you very much.
Okay, got that. Although, I would agree with you that, how do you get selective on this issue? But in it being temporary, the question is, how long can temporary last? It can't go on. Even a week, which is almost going to be a week, I think, this weekend, can knock most people into poverty. I mean, that's really what it is. Those who are trading and selling, not even so much those who are buying, like the children, but what about the traders and what happens to their livelihood, right? Omar in Pretoria, hello. Omar, hi.
Ashraf,
yes.
I just wanted to make my comment with regard to the school vendors.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to check the school authority bodies. What oversight do they have in regards to the so-called accredited vendors? Are they sure that what they are selling or what they are feeding to the school kids is properly handled? And then number two, the school feeding schemes, where do they feature in the whole scheme of things here?
Okay, got that. I think important questions. Well, I would think they would have had to have an oversight. That is why the argument would be that, if you're going to tackle one, you must tackle every single one of them. As far as the food feeding schemes are concerned, I actually don't know because it doesn't fall into this category. You're right. They're not selling anything. But again, do we make the assumption that all their foods are absolutely fine? So thank you for raising that, Omar. And if somebody else has an opinion on that, they can certainly do. Let's get to another call, also from Pretoria. Sammy on the line. Hi, Sammy.
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good to connect with you. Go ahead, Sammy.
Ashraf, this whole thing of targeting spaza shops and informal traders. Mm-hmm. This government are just going after the easy target because Mutual Lady told us that this kit was being made by organophosphate. Organophosphate is found anywhere. Any store that uses rodent guts, you will find organophosphate there. Organophosphate is inside rodent guts, whether it's in Pick and Pay, spaza shops, or ShopRite checkers. And the other thing about organophosphate, Ashraf, you find it in processed cheese, bread, pasta, and so on. And this whole thing goes back to, it started at the post-harvesting process. After harvesting, those whole things, sometimes they're not washed properly. They go into manufacturing. The next thing, they go into the shelves. And the people eat those things, they end up dying. This is not a spaza shop problem. It's an industry-wide problem. They need an entire health audit. So to just go after spaza shops and informal traders, they are chasing after a ghost. They're never going to get to the problem, to the source of the problem, because they are targeting the smaller people. This government is incompetent. It must go and consult these proper professionals who've got experience.
All right, got that. I'll tell you what, I wonder, does anybody agree with Sammy in Pretoria? They're going after the small fish. There are some big fish out there who have been left alone. You mull over that and send me your messages, WhatsApp, text messages. This is the National Pulse. That should certainly get your pulse rate moving, I'm sure of that. 4 o'clock, here's the news with Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Torrential rains cause havoc in the Free State, and Majordina speaks on water supply issues. For SAFM News, I am Wandalambana, and a very good afternoon. Heavy rainfalls continue to cause havoc in some parts of the Free State. The severe rains have caused damage to some houses and infrastructure in formal and in informal settlements. Fezile District and Mangaung Metro are also affected. The South African Red Cross Society is continuing to assess most of the affected areas. Claudia Mangwegabe is from the SA Red Cross Society.
As the South African Red Cross Society, today we are in Tabanchu. We have managed to work with the municipality and be able to conclude in terms of 64 households that have been affected. And then we also have about 68 households that have been affected in Lejolipuza, that is in Botterville. And then in Boshoff, we have about 68 households that have been affected. Assessment is still continuing, but as the society will then come and intervene in terms of providing humanitarian relief.
The Garden Route District Municipality in the Western Cape says raids on spaza shops in the region will be ongoing to check for compliance and violations. The raids are being conducted together with police and municipal law enforcement. Officials confiscated expired food and issued notices for businesses operating without valid licenses. Several spaza shops were also closed for various violations. Garden Route District Municipality Environmental Health Practitioner David Maluka.
It's important that our cleaning equipment, cleaning chemical are separated from our food products. For example, you cannot put bread next to the bleach. You cannot put tomatoes next to the space of, at least this is a good separation of the chemical and the food products.
Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majordina has ascribed Gauteng's water supply disruptions to, among others, the growing population. Majordina delivered a statement in the National Assembly on water scarcity in the country. Residents of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal have been bearing the brunt of lengthy water cuts in recent weeks. An average of 40% of clean water is said to be lost through leaks, which adds to those of these municipalities. Majordina says water management has not kept up with the demand of growing population.
They are caused by rapid growth in the demand for water, because these are big cities and the population is growing, and the influx of people from all corners. Remember, Johannesburg is an economic hub of the country. However, the leaks are in turn as a result of under-budgeting for infrastructure maintenance by municipalities.
Manufacturing production in South Africa declined 0.8% on an annual basis in September for a second consecutive month. The data released by Stats showed that on a monthly basis, manufacturing production was flat in September compared with August. Seasonally adjusted output increased by 0.2% in the third quarter of 2024 compared with the previous quarter. International Relations and Cooperation Minister Ronald Lamola says half of Sudanese population is in dire need amid the continuing conflict. He was addressing the media. Lamola says Sudan has experienced the largest population displacement in the world due to the ongoing conflict. He has also called on the African Union to find a lasting solution. He says efforts are being made to bring together to the warring parties.
Before the conflict, Sudan was already experiencing a severe humanitarian crisis, long-term political instability and economic pressures that left 15.8 million people in need of humanitarian aid. The conflict has only exacerbated these conditions, leaving 25.6 million people, more than half of Sudan's population, in need.
Recapping the top story, heavy rainfalls continue to cause havoc in some parts of the Free State. The severe rains have caused damage to some houses and infrastructure in formal and informal settlements. I am Ondilambana for SAFM News. Headlines at 4:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Women's Premier Division to start early in 2025. And we talk all things Mandela Remembrance Walk and Run with the Nelson Mandela Foundation CEO, Mbongiseni Buthelezi. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, some Railway bus feeder services throughout Soweto remain disrupted, so please do check before travel. The R24 westbound has a crash reported before the Edenvale Road exit. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash reported near Van Buren Road, and Santon Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a chemical spillage incident reported. This is at Cliffdale. The left lane is closed, so please do approach with caution. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck after Umgeni Road, and you also asked to expect delays through Prospection area due to traffic diverting from the N2 southbound closure. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is queuing towards Kuburg Interchange. The N1 outbound has ramp closure with no access to Lower Church Street, and the N2 inbound has a crash reported near Mowbray Main Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Whew, what a day. Time for that face mask. Leave the face mask on for 2 minutes. 2 minutes? That's not even enough time for it to work. I can't even send an email in 2 minutes or make a cup of coffee.
With Santam, 2 minutes is enough to insure your car online. When you're fully protected with an expert insurer, you're free to live in the moment, not in the worry. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So it's exam season. It means everybody's writing the exams and very busy studying and not wanting to go out. So that's one level. And then teachers marking papers as soon as they're done. It's that sort of tension that exists, between teachers and learners in classrooms all around the country, understandably so. Now, one offshoot of all of that is the compiling of exam papers, right? And not so much whether the questions are hard or not. No, there's a debate. In fact, there's an accusation that the high costs of exam papers for this year compared to before are unacceptable. And I understand it's gone up from something like 1 billion to 3 billion rand. So let's find out exactly what it is. And there's certainly been a thought to say, how can that be allowed to happen? So let's get the opinion of Elijah Mklanga, the Department of Basic Education spokesperson. Elijah, it's always good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Ashraf, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us again.
Thank you. So help us understand this. There are accusations that the costs have sort of hopelessly overridden compared to last year, right? So what were the costs of the exam papers last year? What are they now?
Well, Ashraf, it's a complete misunderstanding, misreporting, and inaccurate capturing of the facts. As we read on the City Press on Sunday, I think the journalist did not understand what he was talking about. He mistook the total cost of running the exam, the entire exam with everything included, for printing of question papers. And he made it look like the printing costs are 3.6 billion, when in fact that's not the case. The actual printing costs are only 200 million. Per year, if we were to consider the number of learners that we have in the system. But if you were to put everything else together, the number is so huge because there's a lot that's involved in the process.
Okay, so you're saying in terms of the report that was put out was that 200 million rands. Did you say 200 million, right?
Yes.
200 million. That it was reported it's moved from 200 million to 3.6 billion rands, and that massive discrepancy obviously then rang alarm bells in the reporter, but also suggested, as many people have suggested, you see, that's the problem with South Africa. There's a whole lot of fat there in terms of corruption that's been put into place. And you're saying this entire communication is incorrect.
Yeah, it's incorrect. There's no corruption. Maybe we can talk about it. How do we want our exams to be like? What should we do to protect the integrity, credibility, and image of this examination? Every year we get asked, what are you doing to make sure that papers do not leak? We say we increase monitors, we improve our storage facilities, we improve security, we're changing printing companies, we're making sure that we use state security to advise us. When state security advise us, they say make an improvement. Where there are no cameras, make sure that there are cameras. When we make all those improvements, there are costs added to that. But we are doing all of this in the interest of the entire nation, because the National Senior Certificate is the single most important paper in the life of each and every one of us. Because even if, Ashraf, you have your doctorate, when you apply for a new job, the first thing they ask you for is a matric certificate, which means it's a critical piece of document that must be credible every time you produce it. It must not be associated with any scandals. So we work very hard every year to make sure that we protect it against fraudsters, we protect it against even some of the bad elements within our own system, who on previous occasions have sought to undermine the system by making it available to other people illegally. So tightening the system comes at a cost, but it's not just tightening the system. It's also having to pay the people that are working in the system. It's also having to make sure that you transport these papers from one place to another. We've got 6,909 centers. For you to be able to ensure that 727,121 candidates receive the right question paper on time, every time, at the same time, in all the centers, it's a massive undertaking. So it could not be any less than this, because on the one hand, we are saying, let's avoid the dropout. So when we work hard to retain the learners, they increase the number of those that are writing matric. And with that increase is the cost as well.
Okay, so to confirm then, you're saying the actual printing of the exam paper is 200 million rands only, right? And I use the word only.
Yeah, 220 million.
Okay,
yes.
Total cost 3.6 billion rands. What went into, and you're saying that 3.6 is actually consistent in terms of what's expected of a cost, so you don't have overspending there.
Yeah, so the setting, just the process of setting question papers, you get a group of people in a room over a period of time to work out what the questions should be. Remember, we've got about 200 question papers that are set in this exam just in 2024. And for each paper, you need a group of experts who sit in a room to consider the best possible scenario, which will become a question paper for each subject, for the learners in the given year. So all of those costs, accommodation, traveling, and all of those things. That's the first thing. The second thing is the moderation of the question paper, because once it has been set, it will then go to another group who are going to consider it. And now we have another process that ensues. And then once it's finalized, then it's the printing, and then there's transport, then the security, and then you have to pay the markers. And each year we've got about 55,000 markers who have to mark about 11 million scripts over a 10-day period in December. And all of those things need to be taken care of. And where they stay, its accommodation is meals, and they work for long hours. And of course, you then need to make sure that you print the statement of results for each and every one of our candidates, which means 727,121 all the time, excluding the 155,000 part-time candidates who are writing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 subjects at a time. So if you put the number together, it's 832,000 documents that you need to prepare for all these individuals.
Okay, all that. When you mention that, maybe there's even greater sympathy for why is it only 3.6 billion, but let me not say that. Are you able to just give us a breakdown in percentage terms, in terms of the budget? Where does most of the money get spent? Not the actual rand figures, just the percentages. You mentioned accommodation, you mentioned paying the examiners, you mentioned security, I would think, right? Do you have that with you?
Yeah, already you can work it out. If out of 3.6 billion, 200 million goes to printing, you can then see that the rest of the money goes to the people that work in the system. So it's paying all the individuals that are in the system that are making the system to work, but also securing this, because security, security in terms of the storage facility, but also security in terms of transport. So security plays a huge role because all the printing facilities need security. So to us, that's a big factor. That's why we bring in state security to help us, because to us, that's a very sensitive environment.
Well, I mean, I think you state your case well. It makes absolute sense to me. Elijah Mhlanga, the Department of Basic Education spokesperson, this in response to a City Press piece that in fact said that 3.6 billion rands, up from something like 1 billion, was used to spend monies for the matric exam in particular. But he's saying no, it's the actual papers are only 200 billion. The balance of it all goes into a whole lot of all-important administration that just has to be put in place to ensure that the integrity of the exams are maintained, sustained. Well, you have an opinion on that, I'm sure you do. Let's get to some further thoughts and comments from you. Let me just pick up. In fact, I'll get to those WhatsApps right after this.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Call us on 086 000 2032.
Well, we had the conversation with AfriForum earlier on, where they're saying, that certainly these at schools, right, that these, let's call them tuck shops, for want of a better word, those that are registered, those that have got approval from the schools, they should not be banned by the Gauteng department as they're doing right now. There's a blanket ban on all these various service providers. They should not be banned. Only those that are effectively not given the approval must be, suspended, right? What do you make of that? Here's AfriForum. Here's another comment.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and good afternoon to the SAFM listeners. Surprisingly, I never thought in a million years that I would ever agree with AfriForum. But on this one, I'm fully behind them. Thanks. This is Lusugo in the Eastern Cape.
Okay, in fact, we played that again, so there we are, second time round. Let's get another comment about, this should get you thinking.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, rather than keeping on arguing with this ever-complaining forum, which is AfriForum, about these vendors, parents must just stop giving their kids money to go and buy it from schools. Simple as that. That is the best solution. Parents must prepare food. They must not give their kids money to go and buy it to school. If there is money to go and buy it to school, that same money must be money to prepare food from home. Simple as that. Then the problem is sorted out. Leave out AfriForum because it's always morning. Anti-government always. Norman from Brixton.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, first of all, many parents can't. They don't have the time. They work long hours. They would prefer their children buying it from schools. But also, there's an economy that in terms of these vendors, these tuck shops, there's an economy that benefits the school but benefits the person who's running it, inside the school, outside. And I can tell you now, and this is an important point, okay, at this point in time, 3-4 days of no trade, are you asking them a question? I'm talking of the owners now, not even the learners. What has happened to their business? You try and keep your business shut down for 5 days and you see what happens. That is a big issue that must be considered as well. That's why if they've got a suspension, that cannot go on indefinitely. And at the moment, I think 1 week is a long time.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. One word that describes the unemployment in SA is disaster. Baragi, concretiso in Devon.
Disaster, although the unemployment rate has gone down, you still say disaster, okay?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, I think we're living in a serious movie. For the whole community to be connected illegally does not make sense. I mean, there's properly roads. So how is it that when there was town planning for that particular area, there was no water connected? In 7 years, there was no water. Everything has been illegal. And now the illegal connections need some legal approval for the illegal connections to be turned off. I'm not too sure what this is, but yeah, South Africa for you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Spoken like a poet about something that's really, really far more significant than just playing on words. I get you right. Okay, more comments. What's your one word? By the way, unemployment rate, you've heard that the unemployment rate has gone down, but there's a big but around that in terms of the conversations we just had. When it comes to the age groups 15 to 24, 25 to 34, and you combine that, the unemployment rate remains 45.4%. It is huge. It really is. We have to get South Africans employed. It's the reality. If we want stability in this country, there has to be a way to get them employed. So what's your one word that you would use to describe the current unemployment, the state of unemployment in our country? WhatsApp us 0614-104-107, voice notes or text, or to call in 086-000-2032. In fact, you can also post it on the X or the Twitter platform for SAFM Radio, and the same on our Facebook pages too. Right, further comments. Bramoro, you have a view. Hi.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for the good show and the team.
Much appreciated, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. The current Home Affairs Minister, I'm quite disappointed in him. He's not availing himself to the media. Unlike Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, he was always even on your show, he himself will call in to express his opinion on any issues that is on the table. But the current one, we hardly hear him, even for SAFM to have him interview him. The previous Home Affairs Minister had a Director General called Mr. Mtleni, who was there during Malusi Kigabe's era. They had a white paper. This is where the whole point goes. That white paper was to address the township economy, whereby Bramoro, I stay in the municipality, which is Mangaung. So I don't have to go to Pretoria to renew my document. I submit all my documents, my residence permit, etc., to the Mangaung municipality, because I reside in that municipality. The municipality can confirm my address, confirm my business address, where I stay, where I do my business, so that should I be involved in any criminal element, it will be easy for the municipality to deal directly with me instead of my documents going to National, which is in Pretoria, and it will be stuck there for 2, 3, 5 years. So these tax shop issues, food poisoning, etc., it will surprise us that even the state wouldn't be able to identify most of the owners of the tax shops, because the municipality that we are all working under doesn't even know us, and the state is not giving them that power for them to even probe some of our activities.
Okay.
So if maybe we can have that, the ex-Home Affairs Minister to give us the whole point about that white paper, because it was going to even reduce the unemployment rate. In Bloemfontein, we have Home Affairs. Across South Africa, there's Home Affairs branches everywhere. Foreigners just go to that nearest Home Affairs. You apply for the papers. Home Affairs in that municipality, together with the municipality, work on fast-tracking the application. If there is any doubt in them, or if you're involved in any criminal element, they stand there to resolve that issue instead of going to the national.
Well,
So
I
this
agree with you.
Shop-
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
agree. Yeah.
Let us find a lasting solution to the ongoing crisis. ShopRite and the big retailers also, they are very disappointing. They are always in the city.
Okay. Pramod, I need
etc.
to move on. I need to get to other thoughts as well. I'm sure you understand that we need to get as many people to talk to us as possible. But you made your point and also suggesting, well, I mean, I agree that you can't have these conversations every single day where just nothing of these things get resolved. Now, here's another one from Kaz in Durban saying, Ashraf, I've seen expired products in a shop of one of the biggest supermarket chains, so it can happen anywhere. And, well, that's exactly my point. To simply reduce you to, say, a school tuck shop would be potentially guilty, but not a big supermarket. You've got to be kidding. Really, you have to. Buyiswa in Parktown, go ahead. Hi.
Yes, thank you, Asha, for taking my call.
Appreciate
I
it,
just
yeah.
want to beg to differ with what you were trying to say yesterday about people having meetings with foreign nationals. You don't know the tension that is on the ground. You know, and I was saying maybe the other solution is that those of us who stay in the suburbs, better, middle class and big business, take these foreign nationals and stay with them. Because
Okay, but what did I say specifically that you disagree with?
you say they need to have a meeting. You can't end this middle of this chaos and suggest a meeting.
Well, you know what?
It's
If you
too
don't have
late.
a meeting,
It's too late.
listen,
It's too late.
I think what's important is
Yes.
in the meeting, I'm not suggesting that foreign nationals must run the township or the township economy. Absolutely not. I'm actually saying, and I said it with unemployment now, we have got to escalate more South Africans to get jobs, to have businesses around the country. Absolutely. Now, I'm also saying there's already existing foreign nationals who run certain spaza shops or whatever. They exist right now. There has to be conversations between them and government and local authorities and how they can be integrated, not just in the communities, but certainly with new owners who can collaborate with them. Beyond them, I'm saying there has to be an escalation of more South African-owned businesses. I absolutely agree with that. Now, what's wrong with that?
No, the problem is that they come here with the mind that when they go back home, they'll be multimillionaires. When South Africans are not multimillionaires, that's why they're selling every shit that you find in the spaza shop, because they want to make money. It's a fast making money.
Okay.
And let them tell people become human beings. It's not going to work. You know.
All right.
We have suffered too much from these people, and they don't have respect, and the law must be applied. Finish and class.
All right. All I'm saying, I hear you. Let's move on. In terms of the law being applied, that's the type of conversations that government and authorities must have. It can't just be, okay, this is my interpretation, this is what's going to happen. You have to actually have conversations. Even unions, union leaders, employers, they have conversations. You have to have a conversation to reach some solution. Mike in Newlands, go ahead. Hi.
Hello, Ashraf. Yeah, the word that springs to mind with unemployment is dignity. You know, with work comes dignity, and the government that we have is denying people in our country dignity of work. We've actually, the unemployment that we have in our country is a man-made crisis. It's not just a crisis. It's done, legislated to be in place. And I'll give you an example as to why, Ashraf. If I get one man, and we make baskets. I can import baskets from China for 25 Rand a basket, but I can make them here for 20 Rand. I can pay a person 10 Rand a day, 10 Rand an hour, and you can make 80 Rand a day and 1,600 Rand a month. He earns 380 or whatever it is on that pathetic little ANC grant. That means it'll be 1,220 Rand better off, and I can do that with about 20 people. But unfortunately, I'm not allowed to do that, Ashraf, because the government has legislated that this man can't work for 10 Rand, whether he likes it or not.
So you would have minimum wage scrapped? I mean, it's a question I asked earlier on.
Who is this government to tell me or you what we can work for? It is absolutely outrageous. And now these people, the thousands of people are sitting around that could work and we can't fight China unless we're going to get down on our knees and literally strangle them. And that's what we need to do. We need to start fighting for our share of the marketplace.
Okay, got that.
When the ANC legislature's out of the world here, we're never going to cope. We are going to starve.
All right, got that, Mike. Point well made. So here we are. Again, I'll put that question to you because I really don't know. There's a definite case for minimum wage, because if you don't have a minimum wage, then the trend in a mass unemployment economy is that employers are able to push the price down, push the price that they would pay you for your wares down, okay, in terms of your service. On the other hand, in, again, a mass unemployment economy, if you drop the minimum wage, it's possible more people can get employed. Do you see that it's contradictory? I'd love a solution on this one. Greg Host, you've got the news headlines. It's 4:30.
Thank you, Ashraf, and good afternoon to you. In the headlines of this half hour, the City of Tshwane Mayor says they're urgently working to restore the city's finances. Traffic on the R31, that's between Longlands and Berkeley West in the Northern Cape, is backed up for several kilometres due to a protest by residents there. And heavy rainfall continues to cause havoc in some parts of the Free State. I'll have details on all those stories and other news at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, some Railway bus feeder services throughout Soweto remain disrupted, so please do check before travel. The R24 westbound has a crash reported before the Edenvale Road exit. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview has a crash reported near Van Buren Road, and Santon Drive westbound is slow moving towards Winnie Mandela Drive. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a chemical spillage incident reported. This is at Cliffdale. The left lane is closed, so please do approach with caution. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck after Umgeni Road, and you also asked to expect delays through Prospection area due to traffic diverting from the N2 southbound closure. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is queuing towards Kuburg Interchange. The N1 outbound has ramp closure with no access to Lower Church Street, and the N2 inbound has a crash reported near Mowbray Main Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G. Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng.
This is SAFM Sports with Doming Kapele.
Right, Chumi, let's talk. Well, we've got a new rugby season to talk about.
Yeah, a bumper women's rugby season kicks off unusually early in January next year as all eyes turn towards the Rugby World Cup in England in August and September. The Bulls Daisies begin the defence of their Women's Premier Division crown at the end of the first month of 2025 as SA Rugby adjusted the calendar to provide the best high-performance flight path towards the World Cup. Now, the country's top 8 provincial women's teams will play the competition over a single round, with the final to be contested by the top 2 teams on the log of that completion of the league phase, which is scheduled for the 28th of March. In football, Bafana coach Hugo Broos has put his neck on the line by making it clear that he would resign should the team fail to qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations. The Belgian-born mentor leads the national side into 2 crucial fixtures away to Uganda and South Sudan in the coming days, and Bruce says that in the event that Bafana are unable to get enough points to secure a ticket to Morocco next year, he will immediately step down and leave the country.
You know, when we lose 2 games, 5 minutes after the game, I'm on the flight to Belgium. You can be sure of it. You can be sure of it. If we can't win, okay, Uganda, but not at home against South Sudan, I tell you, I take immediately the flight and you will see me never back again.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. But meanwhile, the first Carling All-Stars 11 has been revealed, including 4 Kaizer Chiefs players, 4 Orlando Pirates stars, and 3 from Mamelodi Sundowns. With the Carling knockout final around the corner, the voting for the Carling All-Star 11 will take on the winners of the Carling Knockout Cup has officially opened. Orlando Pirates goalkeeper Sipho Chain is currently featuring in goal. The Bucks shot stopper is joined by 3 club teammates, namely Jabulani Mokone, who counts as one of the 5 DStv Diski Challenge starlets, Talent Mbata and Relebohile Mofokeng. 3 more DDC players complete the current back 4, with Chiefs duo Aiden McCarthy and Xolani Mxosa being voted in alongside Sundowns wingback Aseko Tiwani, who has already broken through into the senior team after his move from TS Galaxy. Kaizer Chiefs then in the midfield, Mbata and Mofokeng are joined by Spelele Mkhuluse and Gaston Sereno, while Vincent Mokoena and Lady Hlongwane currently form the attack duo. Then the Nelson Mandela Remembrance Walk and Run is happening once again, and this year it's going to be on the 8th of December in a tribute to Madiba's enduring legacy of unity and social justice. So there's a 5-kilometer walk, and then 10-kilometer and 21-kilometer run. And joining me just to chat a bit more about this is the Nelson Mandela Foundation CEO, Mbongiseni Buthelezi. Mbongiseni, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you very much for having me.
I mean, this year marks 11 years since Madiba's passing. What would you say makes this year's walk and run significant, and what will the main focus be on?
This year's run, I think, is significant because we've had major political change in the country. And it's political change that nobody would have foreseen. It's a moment where it is really important for us to be talking about unity and about good public leadership. It's a moment to talk about the values that Madiba so boldly displayed in that transition in South Africa. It's a special moment, of course, because it is 11 years, as you said, since Madiba passed. And in that time, of course, there's been this major change in the country. We want to emphasize Madiba's leadership and to remind ourselves that we are here because of the work that Madiba and his generation did to bring South Africa to where it is today.
I mean, you talk about unity and leadership, and from the years that the walk and run has been there, would you say you've seen the impact that you initially wanted to have with this particular event in the society?
I think it has had that impact. It's actually a very popular run. We do 2 of them a year, one earlier in the year. And people come out in their numbers. There are runners and walkers. And people who hold Madiba in high regard, who want to remember Madiba for what he succeeded in doing for the country. So we've seen, in fact, the walk and run get oversubscribed to the point where the tickets sell out. And so that is an indication to me that it is having the impact that we're hoping for.
Are you able to talk about where the proceeds go?
The proceeds go to supporting the work of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. And that work is really taking forward a lot of the causes for social justice that were close to Madiba's heart. It's work in early childhood development. It's work in memory for justice. In its work in trying to talk about peace and justice as wars rage around the country. It's the Nelson Mandela annual lecture that we host every year. So that's where the proceeds go. I should also point out that the event is hosted in partnership with the Gauteng government.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a 5-kilometer walk, 10-kilometer and 21-kilometer run, and correct me if I'm wrong, I heard there were plans to make it a full-on marathon. Are you able to give us any updates on those plans? How far are you on making it a full marathon?
At this point, I'm not able to give any update on that. That is something that needs to be discussed with the government of Gauteng. We're just focused on making sure that this year's event goes off smoothly, people can come out and have fun. And then we will continue the conversation about whether it is possible to make it into a full marathon in future.
Righty, before I let you go, how can people sign up?
So you can sign up. There are various ways to sign up. The main way is to go on the Nelson Mandela Foundation website. You can get a link to the website where you sign up. There are also on social media links that have been posted, and they're going to continue to be posted over the coming days where you can follow a link and sign up.
Mbongiseni, thank you very much. That is Mbongiseni Buthelezi, who is the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, just chatting about the Nelson Mandela Remembrance Walk and Run. The 5 kilometer is 100 Rand, 10 kilometer 150, and the 21 kilometer is 200 Rand. Are you going to run the 21 kilometer, Ashraf?
Can we move on, please?
With that said, it's a wrap from my side. I'll have more on other sports in the next hour.
South Africa and India will produce hot performances as they both want to triumph during their third T20 contest. The visitors want victory to ensure a joyful tour, but hosts Mzansi refuse to fold their arms. What a summer without cricket! Catch the heated third T20 international action between South Africa and India on Wednesday, 13 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000. With reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the numbers with Makwe Masilela, the Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Good to connect with you as always, Makwe. So you've got two things to talk about, Premier Group interim results as well as local and global markets, right?
Yes, Ashraf, and afternoon to you and to the listeners. Remember, Premier Group, these are your blue ribbon bread guys, Ibiza maize meal guys. Moderate revenue growth, Ashraf, of 3.7%, and that's despite high interest rates, soft commodity volatility, depressed consumer environment, and the suspension of load shedding has been a welcome relief for the economy and the consumer, and their overall financial performance as EBITDA is up 13.5%, and profits as headline earnings per share up 32%. And as the expectations of U.S. economy outperformance and aggressive trade practices from the Trump administration continues to push the US dollar higher, leading the rand to crash through the 18 to the dollar level, and markets are dialing back expectations of Fed cuts going forward, with a cut at the December meeting being thrown into question. But back home, we still expect a rate cut next Thursday, and Bitcoin has jumped about 32% since the US election, hitting an all-time high as Trump has vowed friendlier crypto rules, and stocks paused their advance amid signs that the rally had left valuations overextended. And locally, our Q3 unemployment rate improved by 4% to 32.1%. And our September manufacturing production decreased by 0.8% after falling 1.2% in August. And market participants need to remember that the tariffs have the potential to slow down other economies outside the U.S., particularly those who are major U.S. trading partners like China. Oil prices are rebounding even as OPEC once more cut demand growth forecast for a fourth month in a row. We see oil is up 1% at $72 a barrel, and gold is steady tumbling from record highs, and traders are waiting for tomorrow's U.S. inflation data for more clues when it comes to rate cuts. And gold as it is now is flat at 2,617, but platinum is down 0.7% at 952. Markets are struggling today with the GSE down 0.7%, impacted mainly by our resources, and the rand weakened almost 1% against the US dollars 18.08 and 23.14 to the pound and 19.20 to the euro.
Okay, that's it. So we'll have a chat again tomorrow, Makwe. Thanks for your time, as per always, right? Okay, still to come, we'll be chatting soon to Bulelani Balabala. He's the head of the Township Entrepreneur Alliance, talking about some important lessons in terms of health and safety, bits of advice really for spaza shop owners, but also understanding the township economy. Before we get to all of that, there's a range of opinions as expected every single day from around the country, and let's reflect some of those.
Hi Ashraf, Sia in Durban. You know, I didn't get to read the article, but I have a strong feeling that somebody got the information about the story from basic education, and I've got this funny and ugly feeling that they got the right information about the costs, but they deliberately just made it sound as if all these costs were just for printing. I don't know, I've got this strange feeling that this was just deliberate. The person who wrote this got the accurate information and they decided to just write what they wrote. Thank you, Ashraf.
And need I ask you, what would be their motivation?
Hi, Ashraf. I'm the one who have a spaza shop next to the school. And I'm a South African. So I do believe that all these problems that we have or that are coming across to our kids, it's because of these foreign owners of the spaza shop or tuck shop or any shop. Government must deal with these foreign people that are running spaza shop here in South Africa. They must close it. Once they found that there's something wrong to that spaza shop or any shop, government must close it. We can't have this problem that we have right now through the foreign.
Okay, so if it's discovered, you say they must close it. Would that be the solution? I wonder whether others would concur. We spoke about unemployment. It's another big issue that moves the national pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. My name is Elfas Ngoboye in KwaZulu-Natal. One word to describe the current unemployment crisis facing South Africa is irreversible. Not even the GNU can reverse this trend, Ashraf. Enjoy your afternoon.
Oh, you say irreversible and you say enjoy your afternoon. How do I enjoy my afternoon? No, I genuinely hope you are wrong, because we somehow have to reverse this. There's no question about that.
Good afternoon. When it comes to the unemployment, there's a whole lot of factors. One was the previous apartheid era economy, and two is the government since then's policies haven't opened up anything to be able to grow the economy, and third is that our population has doubled since 1993-94. So that's where the crux is. You know, the population increases outstripped any growth in the economy. Cheers.
Well, all the more there has to be a response, isn't it? We can't say what can we do. And in this case here, I'm making it very clear. It's critically important that South African South African nationals, let's put it that way, we have to actually find a space for them in the South African economy. It's a not negotiable. It really is.
Good afternoon, Mr. A. I will say it with one word: lies. There is no unemployment in South Africa. Foreigners are working everywhere. So unemployment is a myth. There is no such a thing as unemployment. You find them in every sector. So there is no unemployment. It's lies. Thank you, Pastor. Cape Town.
There's no unemployment? So everybody has a job. Everybody who wants to work has a job. Oh, my goodness. No, I can't agree with that, can I?
Hi, Ashraf Roskin Pologwan. As someone who once worked earning peanuts, I wouldn't encourage scraping the minimum wage so that we have many people working. I mean, what's the point of saying I'm working, but then you can only afford transport and then buy a loaf of bread here and there, and then that's it. No, that doesn't solve the problem. We better have 5 people working, earning a basic salary or minimum wage at least, than having 10 people who are earning 200 that they can't do anything with it. But that's my view. Maybe I'm speaking from a point of privilege, but then yeah, that's my thought. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I mean, let me flip it around. I mean, many people would concur with you. I mean, that's what the law says as well. The flip side of that is, even if you're earning very little, and I'm not encouraging it, just so you hear me correctly, it does give you a foot in the door. And there are many, many stories of people who, once they get a foot in the door and they really show the drive that they have, well, you know what? They just don't ever turn back. And that's what you want.
I'm telling Asaf, yeah, listen, this is a crisis. You see, youngsters now, this work unemployment story is not going to absorb everybody. So what youngsters need to do now, they need to do at opportunities for themselves. Maybe a hobby that they're good at and start developing that, you know. They can't wait for this government to create jobs anymore. They'll wait forever. I have a son that's doing that. He's a musician. He's at the waterfront with his guitar every day. He's making money. He's even using technology for people to tip him or whatever. And he's making money. He's not sitting at home doing nothing. So find a hobby or something and start doing it. Don't wait for this government any longer.
Well, I do agree. You can't wait. You can't wait for government any longer. I think that's obvious. Government is incapable of providing the type of economy that will ensure that we all get jobs. So you have to hustle in completely different ways, as opposed to standing. It's easier to actually try and do something on your own than to wait in an unemployment queue. But I do agree that the numbers of unemployment are just too high. And when I say it's easier, we must consider there are many people who are unemployed who do not have the connections and the contacts that maybe you and I have. So we must factor that in. But it still is probably the way to go, and have a less dependence on waiting for an employer or government to give you this employment handout, because that's shrinking, isn't it? It's pretty obvious.
Only the team that plays the best cricket on the day will enjoy the last laugh. South Africa and India are both hungry to wrap the T20 International Series on the highest possible note. What a summer without cricket! Do not miss out on the fourth and final T20 International battle between South Africa and India on Friday, 15 November at 4:30 p.m. live on SABC3 and 4 p.m. on Radio 2000, with reports on various SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, well, we've been certainly talking about the township economy for a good few weeks on end, isn't it? So we thought, let's do this. There's two things, in fact. One is that Bulelane Balabala, he's the founder of the Township Entrepreneur Alliance, T, as it's the acronym TEA. So when he talks about taking you out to tea, you'll get it. That's one. They have put together a circular, some advice around health and safety for sponsor shops. So we'll talk about that, and I thought we'll also use the opportunity to get him to give us some insight into understanding the township economy. So Bulelane, good chatting to you, and thanks for connecting here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you, sir?
I'm very good indeed. So first of all, I'm impressed with your circular on health and safety for sponsor shops. So tell us, what have you put out?
So I think for us, what we put out was basic health and safety, right, and regulations. Because I think, we've had the opportunity to talk at great length about the impact. But however, we noticed that no one is really talking about how do these businesses actually operate in a manner that, is safe, where, is safe. So we created a short Module 1 booklet. So we're calling it Module 1 because it's a series of about 6 other digital booklets that we'll then be putting out. And with this whole aim of, if you know a food vendor or someone who runs a puzzle shop in any community, we want you to share that handbook with them so that it helps them to understand how to store food, how to handle, hygiene, and all of those things so that it becomes a preventative measure. I think you would have noted, the number of young kids that have lost their lives as a result of food contamination and poison and all that stuff.
Okay, so I'm not going to run into detail about that. I'd like you to maybe share it if you can, and even maybe post it on our social media pages and tag me and SFM Radio. We'll gladly share that. But just give us maybe just one or two important insights about the how-to around safety that we need to know.
No, obviously, I think obviously for us, the first thing is it talks to the cleanliness, right? And I think this thing, and I think you really, every time we talk about these things, and I always say to the team, it's important for us to make sure that the language is so simplified, because sometimes we miss people when we talk over their heads. And I mean, some of the basic stuff that we're sharing with the individuals is, number one, ensure that the environment that you operate in is clean. Number two, it's important for you to then, over and above that, ensure that you don't store, the way in which that you store your food. You can't have solid foods being stored with foods that have been prepared, at the end of the day. And then I think some of the things that we then also talk to in here, around the food inspection and quality, which then is an important and vital one, because what we've noticed is that majority of these business owners go out there and they stock food in consignment, and then they put it in a freezer thinking that it would last forever. Not all foods have got an eternal shelf life. Different foods have got different types of shelf life, so it's important for you to then measure that. And I think that some of the very basic and practical ways that we've done that is to say, as a business owner, you've got a tool which is called a phone. In that phone, you've got basic things that are built into every phone, which is a reminder, which means that when you buy any products and tools and you're stocking them, set reminders on your phone, so that when you need to then measure out when you either need to do the stock take and the quality check, but as well as being able to then get rid of expired goods, you can do that within a time-use manner.
Okay, now, those do's and don'ts are really important. I take it that is targeted at the store owners or store managers of these spaza shops in townships, aren't they?
No, definitely. This handbook that we've created is targeted at, number one, the spaza shop owner as well as his team and staff. Because if he didn't know certain things, now it gives him a short, less than 20-minute booklet for him to take his team through, but also for him to orientate himself on, so that some of the notes that we've put in there, we've tried to keep it brief and concise, but some of the notes that we've put in there, put them in a position where they're actually able to go out and actually gather more research and insights for themselves, so that they're able to then equip themselves, and then they don't suffer the ban that the government is talking about.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about goods that are, issues about hygiene, especially when you're talking about food here, right? Is it a case of these spaza store owners could well be unhygienic or selling of foods that effectively becomes unhygienic because A, they don't care, or B, they don't know any better?
No. So I think, number one, it's a myriad of different things, right? One of the points that I'd like to make is the fact that we've always had spaza shops, but I think obviously because now spaza shops are heavily unregulated, and we've had a myriad of different individuals now participating in the running of these spaza shops, we now don't know what is the primary values core driver for the individuals that are now operating within that space, which means that it now puts us in a very difficult position, because in the townships that in the township that I grew up in, that I live and I still do some of the work in, you go into that spaza shop, and the reality of that spaza shop that is ran, some of these foreign ran spaza shop, is that the owner or the individual who's working in that spaza shop sleeps in that spaza shop, baths in that very same spaza shop. So it doesn't just become a spaza shop where you're selling food. Now, that in and itself is, a total hygiene no-no completely.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the individual who lives in the township is going to go there and buy that food primarily because we are price sensitive more than anything. So which is why I think the big regulation that we talk about that comes into play, needs to come into play, so that it then doesn't just regulate from a food management perspective, but it also then regulates from an inclusion perspective, because no sensible South African or no sensible business owner is going to be sleeping in their own shop and sleeping next to their own maize mill.
Absolutely. And I agree with you.
It's important then for us to then ensure that we are able to then level that out from a competitive point of view, because if I don't need to pay additional room for rental elsewhere and I sleep in the very same shop where I sell food, obviously my pricing is going to be more competitive than everybody else. But in the long, then the food might potentially then be contaminated.
Okay.
So it's a myriad of different things that then contribute to that. But which is why then in the booklet we try and answer those things. So whether the individual or individuals were ignorant, were being malicious, or they just simply didn't care, this document is just just trying to bring everyone to the point of saying, even if you don't care, your business is going to get shut down. If you're someone who cares, here's a document that's going to help you care even deeper and even better.
Okay. I'll tell you what, we don't have much time. I'd love to talk more about that. What we probably should do is have another conversation with you, just understanding the township economy in terms of the type of businesses, in terms of the cost factors, in terms of who they are they foreign nationals, are they South Africans, in terms of the products and what works and what are the dynamics and what are the tensions that exist within those township economies. But not today, maybe sometime soon. We'd love to do that. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Lots to consider there. Let's get to the news now. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg Gross.
Thank you, Ashraf. Swane Mayor speaks on city's finances and dozens killed in China hit-and-run attack. Good day to you. The Swane Mayor, Nasipa Moya, says they're urgently working to restore the city's finances. This comes as the municipality struggles to collect billions of rands owed to it by residents and businesses. In an interview with SABC News, Moya detailed her 100-day action plan to save the metro, including settling the city's almost 7 billion rand debt to Eskom by the end of the month.
Now we need to raise revenue. We must stop billing people based on estimates. We said by end of these 100 days, 95% of the bills, which is a tall order, must be based on actual readings and not estimates. We have a lot of millions that are locked in disputes with business that don't want to pay us because it's based on that. So we wanted to reduce the number of disputes so that those millions can come into the coffer. We also have a billion debt that we owe to the workers in the form of the salaries. By end of this month, we have to resolve the Eskom debt and the issue of the employees.
Traffic on the R31 between Longlands and Berkeley West in the Northern Cape is backed up for several kilometres due to a protest by residents who've been without power since Friday. The demonstrators have blocked the road with rocks and burning tyres. Here are the views of some locals.
We have a problem here in Longlands of electricity. Since Saturday, there was no electricity. I've lost my aunt because she was living with an oxygen. We lost her. And now we are closing the road because the councillor, the mayor, everyone, no one has ever given us any feedback. And we have lost our food, our meat, everything.
We are suffering since from Saturday. It was a disaster. Our problem is that we want answers.
Heavy rainfall continues to cause havoc in parts of the Free State. The severe rain has caused damage to some houses and infrastructure in formal and informal settlements. The Fasili Derby district and the Mangaung Metro are among those worst affected. The Red Cross Society is continuing to assess the affected areas. The Society's Claudia Mangungabe.
As the South African Red Cross Society, today we are in Tabanchu. We have managed to work with the municipality and be able to conclude in terms of 64 households that have been affected. And then we also have about 68 households that have been affected in Lejolipuza, that is in Botterville. And then in Boshoff, we have about 68 households that have been affected. Assessment is still continuing, but as the society will then come and intervene in terms of providing humanitarian relief.
Residents of Delpoort's Hoop in the Northern Cape are picking up the pieces following a heavy rain area that swept through the area over the weekend, blowing off roofs and causing other damage. The aunt of a 10-year-old boy who sustained injuries says she's distraught over what happened to him. Betty Matabese says her nephew is currently in intensive care in hospital. The Department of Social Development, meanwhile, says it's identified over 45 affected households and provided them with food parcels and blankets. Further afield to end, a hit-and-run attack at a sports centre in southern China has killed 35 people and severely injured another 43. Police have arrested a 62-year-old man. The BBC's Laura Bicker has more.
Witnesses said the man rammed through the sports centre fence and then appeared to deliberately run down a number of people who were exercising on a sports track at the time. Police in Zhuhai say he attempted to self-harm with a knife at the scene and he is now in a coma, unable to be questioned. They say that he was upset at his divorce property settlement. President Xi has demanded that the best treatment is given to those who have been injured.
Top story, the Swane Mayor says they're urgently working to restore the city's finances. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Gross.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Coming up in your sports this hour, day one of the four-day clash between Dolphins and Titans called off, and Bafana coach Hugo Bruce puts his neck on the block. With more details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, some Ray of Air bus feeder services throughout Soweto remain disrupted, so please do check before travel. The R24 westbound has a crash reported before Edenvale Road exit. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is queuing towards Crown Interchange in Germiston. The N3 northbound has a crash at Elands Interchange, and the N3 southbound queuing towards Geldnes Interchange. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a crash after Cliffdale exit. The road's closed. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before the M41 Gateway exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck after Mgeni Road, and the R102 Andrew Zondo Road southbound in Amanzimtoti has delays towards Athlone Park due to diversion volumes from the N2 southbound closure. In Cape Town, Plain Street is closed at National Parliament. Bakencrust Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. The R44 is slow moving entering the central Stellenbosch area. Komiki Road northbound is queuing at Masipumalele, and Main Road northbound slow moving through Cork Bay. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195, and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
EFC 119 is live this Thursday with a stellar main event featuring interim champion Terrence the Black Panther Balelo and Edson the Trapdoor Spider Machavani, vying for the genuine 24-carat flyweight title, whilst the co-main event will usher in a new era. South Africa's Dana Van Wyk and Nigeria's Juliet Chukwu battle it out for the 135-pound golden buckle. EFC 119 from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
By the way, let me remind you around, so today we chatted around 4:45 or 10 to 5 with Bulelani Bala. But tomorrow, at the same time, I'll chat to Karen Moore about her book called I Will Not Be Silenced. I Will Not Be Silenced. And that's all about her investigative writings around important political figures in this country. So we talk to her about that tomorrow. Listen out for that. Now, we spoke earlier on about the unemployment rate dropping by 1.4% to 32%, but the unemployment rate average between ages of 15 to 34 is around 45%. So I asked you, what's your one word that you would use to describe South Africa's unemployment rate? And I'd welcome that. People are commenting. You can do that on WhatsApp, 0614104107, text or voice note. And then to call in, 086 000 2032. You can also tweet it out. You can you can actually message us on SAFM on Facebook. Just do that. Love to get your, and if you want to add opinion on that, besides the one word, do just that. So let's talk about this with Thapelo Maleke, who's the president of the South African Youth Chamber of Commerce. Thapelo, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
How are you,
my brother, and be blessed, your team, and powerful and respectful, listeners.
Well, I'll
of
tell you
your
what,
show.
I'm fine. I'd be even happier if I found out that the unemployment rate for youth in South Africa is only 10%, but it's not. It's 45%. So I should ask you, how are you?
I am not very happy. We are not creating jobs for our young people, and my job, as you know, Ashraf, is to create opportunities for young people. So when we look at statistics like this, I will never sleep at night, of course, because the other option, I said, they must start their own businesses, but we need to work hard and create opportunities and job opportunities for young people, for women, and persons with disabilities. That we want. That must be our job.
Well, so now when you hear the numbers now, overall it's gone down, overall unemployment by 1%, but it's just far too high. But then in that category we spoke about, it's massive, right? So I heard what you said, but I'm suggesting there has to be some very, very specific interventions that have to take place. Meaning, and I always use the example of COVID-19. When COVID visited South Africa's shores, the country government understood the seriousness of COVID-19 and they tackled it in that light, made it a crisis, or said that's a crisis. So, do you get a sense that we're still not thinking of unemployment as a crisis? We talk about it, we say it's important, we try and get jobs, but there's no actual action plan that can be implementable.
When I was with you, Ashraf, in the studio and Buti Manamela, I said we must be focused and we must be intentional about issues of creating opportunities. When GNU was formed, we were told about a moment of profound significance. But I just see a moment of crisis. Since this, and they are celebrating 100 days of what? 100 days of what? Ashraf, whether we like it or not, we have to create job opportunities. We have to create opportunities for entrepreneurs. We have to make sure that our people are empowered, whether we like it or not.
All right, so how do we go about doing that?
Okay, this is simple. We have students who graduate. When they graduate, they must not graduate into poverty. They must graduate into opportunities. That's number one. We spend a lot of money on NSFAS, for instance, billions that goes into NSFAS for our people to graduate. Now, as soon as they graduate, the private sector must play its role. I don't know why in South Africa we are not holding private sector accountable for not creating opportunities, Ashraf. Me and you, we are actually at fault. Me and you, we are at fault. Private sector must ensure when these young people graduate, they must graduate into opportunities, not into poverty.
Okay, but private sector may argue to say in a shrunken economy, they can only employ so many people. At some stage, they do have to make a profit, and if they can't employ more people, they just can't. In the same way that if government can't employ more people, they also can't. So what then happens next?
All right, let me be sarcastic to you. Do you know how many vacancies are available in government from municipality, provincial, and national? Over 2 million vacancies. So why are we failing to fill those posts? I mean, really, Ashraf, be honest to me and to our listeners.
Well, I don't know why, because I'm not there. If you're saying there's 2 million vacancies, I mean, I'd like to know where those vacancies are so we can get people to go and run and grab them tomorrow morning.
Okay. Now, private sector is worse. They've got a lot of vacancies in private sector. And the problem in South Africa, we are not honest to each other. That's the problem. There's a lot of vacancies in private sector. And then you go also to the issue of entrepreneurship, which is my space, by the way. I'm dealing with entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are trying their best to create job opportunities because small businesses are the ones who are creating jobs. Guess what? All these agencies of government, they don't want to give them as much support as possible. But they are claiming that this agency, CEDA, CFA, and what? Hey, we are here for small business. They are doing fuck all.
Okay, you've certainly got us thinking. Now, here's the last thing. What about, we spoke about the issue of the minimum wage. And do you support that minimum wage is critical, even if it means companies who have the money, but they don't have the money at the minimum wage, they can pay people below the minimum wage? Would you support them paying them below the minimum wage? I know it's illegal now, but I'm talking about assuming if it was lifted. Or do you think that's not acceptable?
Well, Ashraf, my mandate is to create entrepreneurs. So I will never support that issue of minimum wage. I want agencies of government to support people who are starting their own businesses, whether in a form of a grant, whether in a form of a loan, whether in a form of a support structure that speaks to, buying you equipment or machinery. That I will support all my way. That's my mandate. I'm not going to be part of this minimum wage. I don't want to promote laziness in my lifetime.
So you're saying what? Minimum wage promotes laziness?
Yes.
How does it do that?
I'm saying we have agencies of government that has got billions in their accounts. When you want to start a spaza shop, Ashraf, you have to be supported, and then you create more job opportunities. Not this thing of minimum wage and what. Please.
But I mean, most of those agencies also have to create reserves. I mean, you must understand that they have to create reserves for their staff. If they have to buy a building, if they buy, it's not like if you've got millions, that's all your money for forever. It's basically setting aside reserves. You would know that as an entrepreneur yourself.
Yes. Okay. No, it's fine. I'm saying to you, Ashraf, let's create a productive society. That's all I'm saying. That's my message. I think you don't get me.
Well, I get you. I just want us to be able to embrace it in a way that's practical. Let's you tell us.
Yes. Let me tell you now, I've got young people that I have trained, and then they are running. They started their own businesses, and they are running successful businesses. I mean, really, guys, this thing is a simple model. You train a person, start a business, they are now in the energy space. By the way, my young people are now in the energy space. They are providing solar and everything.
But if it's a simple model, then why isn't it being implemented? Keeping in mind that it's not in any government's interest, whether it's the ANC-led government or the GNU government, it's not in anybody's interest for high unemployment rate. I mean, why would we want that?
No. I mean, I'm saying we don't have to be sitting with this high unemployment rate. The reality here is that we don't have leadership in the country. Simple.
Okay. I'll leave you with one last thought. Just give me one solid idea that you haven't mentioned at all. You've already, in something you haven't told us. One solid implementable idea that can drastically reduce the unemployment rate among South African youth. What would that be?
Okay, this is the solution. We have departments and agencies. So what we must do, for instance, NYDA, I've worked NYDA for years. In fact, I established NYDA. So I'm saying if NYDA can be given 3 billion to give young people grants, for instance, so that when you start your business, you are able to get equipment, machinery, and everything. And then you run your business and create job opportunities. That's the simplest opportunity and the simplest model. Now, who wants to start their own businesses? CFA must come on board. CEDA must come on board.
Okay, you've mentioned that already. Okay, let's leave it at that. Tapelo Maleke, the president of the South African Youth Chamber of Commerce. You've heard him. Thank you for your time. You've heard him. Is he on point? He also had an outburst that I had to just smile with a straight face. I've never done that before. But the point is, does he have a point, about his frustrations, that is practical and workable, or is he also off the mark? I'm talking about not looking at the high unemployment rate, and we have a whole conversation about it. I'm saying, come on, what's the practical, implementable step to reduce our unemployment rate, particularly among South African youth? And can we not be innovative, do something remarkable, different? Because the current model of the last 15 years clearly is not working. If it was working, the trajectory would have plummeted downwards in favor of us, but that's not happening. This is the National Pulse.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours, make a difference.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's get on to something else. We've been chatting off air to say, how do you respond when someone swears on air? As we've just heard our commentator talking about now, like, how do you keep a straight face about that type of thing where people just feel they can say what they want because it's only national radio, that sort of thing. Anyway, we kept a straight face and he made his point, and I want you to make your point. Now, let's get into another important issue, right? You may be aware of this. The Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies, Solly Malatse, effectively spoke about the withdrawal of a very important bill called the SABC bill, right? So what does that mean? He, in fact, Solly Malatse said it failed to provide a credible funding model for the SABC's long-term survival. And that is this organization that has a flood of radio stations, TV stations, that has the finest reach in the country, but it's been well documented. The SABC has to re-look at its funding model to ensure that it can not just exist and survive, but can endure and thrive. I mean, that's what we really all want, no matter what, right? So let's talk about what it really means. Okay, William Bird is with me, the Director of Media Monitoring Africa. William, good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Well, good afternoon, Ashraf. Thanks for having me.
Okay, gentlemen, no swearing, please. I'm just warning you. Did you hear that? Okay, let's move on. William, understand that so the bill has been withdrawn. 37 civil society organizations, in fact, backed the withdrawal. Give us a backstory to your understanding of it.
So it was, the first version was introduced some years ago and then quietly put away when it was deemed to be too awful to even contemplate. And then this current version was introduced again in 2023, just ahead of the elections, and in fact there was no desire seemingly to have proper public consultation, and when the Parliament Portfolio Committee received a number of submissions that all condemned the bill, they said, well, we can't decide on this, we're going to kick it down the road and let it be an issue for the next Parliament, which is what happened. This Parliament had a public hearing, and it was one of the most extraordinary hearings I've been involved in the 25 years I've been doing this, because everyone was saying what a disastrous bill this was. So you had civil society, you had private broadcasters, commercial broadcasters, Chapter 9 bodies, and even the SABC saying that this bill would not do what they'd wanted it to do. So everyone was condemning it. So the fact that Parliament is now saying that this was a bill and it's great, and that the Deputy Minister is now also seemingly challenging it, is really quite befuddling, because there was no one who was in support of this bill, and not just because there was opposition to it, it was because it was objectively a bad bill. The overwhelming majority of it was copied from the 1999 Broadcasting Act, which is already hideously out of date. And in fact, the section that deals specifically with the funding mechanisms is almost word for word a copy and paste from the 1999 Broadcasting Act. So when you then add the serious problems posed by the bill, which is that they wanted to get rid of the editor-in-chief and again make that the role of the CEO, that they wanted to create again this ridiculous split between commercial and public commercial, and then open the door for gross ministerial interference. It was a bill that went against the draft white paper. It was a bill that went against everything that has been argued and put forward in that white paper policy process. So the fact that there can be people suggesting that it was going to somehow save the SABC are people that have either not read it or just out of touch with reality.
So therefore, the final decision to withdraw the bill was made by who?
As I understand, it was made by the minister, which he's empowered to do. And, we welcome that decision. It was a clear and rational decision to take. Why on earth? Because if they had gone ahead with the bill, it would have been challenged in court. And let me tell you, that would not have resulted in SABC alleviating its financial issues. The sad thing now is that instead of discussing urgent issues to ameliorate the SABC's financial position, we're now having a debate about whether the minister is fighting within the GNU, who's doing what the political machinations are. And actually, the real issue is, what are the urgent steps that Parliament and the minister and the SABC can take to address its financial position? We know that the previous board submitted plans to the previous minister. I think that the current board may have also submitted plans to the minister. Why isn't Parliament saying, you know what, this bill was terrible, it wasn't going to do anything? Because the only thing it said was, let's give them the department 3 years to come up with a new financial model. 3 years. It's patently ridiculous. They've known that the SABC needed a new financial model for at least the last 15, if not 20 years.
Okay, so now we have a situation. So we have a situation now. The bill has been withdrawn. What's the next plan? What would replace that?
So what they should be doing is working urgently on the white paper policy process. Trying to introduce a bill that isn't going to do anything and that isn't informed by a new policy is just bad practice. So what they should be doing is urgently saying, how do we take the white paper process forward? It's already taken 13 years. Let's move that ahead with pace. The second thing they should be doing is saying, from tomorrow, we're going to start carrying out research on funding models for public broadcasters globally. And the third thing they need to be doing from tomorrow is saying, okay, folks, what are the urgent things that we can put in place in the very short term that will help ameliorate the SABC's position? And then put those out, put them before Parliament, debate them, have public input on them, and then enact those. Those are things that can be done in the next quarter. This nonsense of, okay, the bill this, and then fighting about it, and whose agenda, and blah, 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 it's pointless, because the bill was going to do none of the things that anyone says it was going to do.
So very quickly, in the minute we have remaining, what would, and I'm not talking about an in-depth answer because we don't have the time, but just what are your thoughts in terms of how would you change the funding model from what it is to what you think would be ideal? In the minute for now. You could change your mind again next week, I understand.
You need the SABC to be publicly funded, and it's got to be sustainable. There should be some kind of public interest content fund established. That may be one of the recommendations coming out of the market platform inquiry, for example. That could be demanding that these things get paid for. There could be the technology that content public interest content levy, which is another way of doing it. There are other mechanisms, and of course there should be money put aside from the public fiscus to support it.
Okay, and do you think that would happen? That could happen?
Well, look here, if you look at the money that they've given away and thrown at the SAA, yet every time they've done something for SABC, it hasn't been, okay, here's 5 billion rand. They've said, here's a loan, and every time SABC has paid it back. So unlike other public interest entities, they've just happily given them the money and not demanded it be paid back. They haven't done that with SABC. The question you have to ask is, why? We need a public broadcaster if we're going to stay a democracy. So the question is, how do we fund it? We have to find a way. It's not that hard.
Okay, let's leave it. That's the opening thought. I'm sure we'll have further conversations about that down the road. William Bird, thanks for your time. William Bird is the director at Media Monitoring Africa. Let's get the news headlines. It's 5:30. Here's Greg House.
Quick look at these headlines. Political parties have called for urgent intervention to prevent a full-scale water scarcity crisis in the country. The Tshwane Mayor says they're urgently working to restore the city's finances. And the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation says SA and Botswana will continue to engage and resolve issues that the two countries might have. I'll be back at 6 with all the details.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in central Johannesburg has a crash reported near Heidelberg Road exit. The N3 southbound in Germiston has heavy traffic towards Geldenhuys interchange. The N12 R24 westbound in Germiston has a stationary vehicle before Giluli's interchange, queuing traffic on both routes. The N12 westbound is queuing towards the N1 Dipkloof interchange, and the N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound in Hammersdale has a crash reported after the Cliffdale exit. The road's closed. The N2 northbound has a stationary vehicle before the M41 Gateway exit. The N2 southbound has a stationary truck after Umgeni Road, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The M5 northbound is queuing towards Kuburg interchange. The N2 both ways has a crash reported at Soloris Pass Road. The N7 Jakes Hadwell Drive southbound is queuing towards Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, to me, it's summer. Let's talk cricket.
Yeah, the Hollywood Bets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans had a frustrating opening day of the CSA 4-day series match, during which not a ball was bowled at Kingsmead in Durban today. Both sides had lost their opening games and were keen to play, but ultimately they were denied by the umpire's decision that the conditions were too damp. There had been some overnight rain and a little early drizzle, but aside from a 15-minute period of light drizzle in the morning, the weather remained dry throughout the day until the umpires decided to abandon play around 20:25 this afternoon. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's cricket board has named former South African batsman Neil McKenzie as a consultant coach ahead of the Test tour of South Africa. The former Proteas right-hand batter will work with Sri Lankan players from tomorrow for just over a week, and McKenzie's playing career highlights includes sharing a 415-run stand with Graham Smith against Bangladesh back in 2008. In rugby, newly appointed junior Springbok coach Kevin Foot is excited about his new challenge and ready to roll up sleeves in preparations of laying the ground for what promises to be a busy season for the SA Under-20s next year. Foot and his fellow coaches have already started preparing the inaugural SA Under-19 Academy Camp in November and December in Stellenbosch. Then in football, Bafana coach Hugo Broos has put his neck on the line by making it clear that he will resign should the team fail to qualify for the next Africa Cup of Nations. The Belgian-born mentor leads the national side into two crucial fixtures away to Uganda and South Sudan in the coming days, and he said in the event that Bafana are unable to get enough points to secure a ticket to Morocco next year, he will immediately step down and leave the country.
You know, when we lose 2 games, 5 minutes after the game, I'm on the flight to Belgium. You can be sure of it. You can be sure of it. If we can't win Okay, Uganda, but not against, at home against South Sudan. I tell you, I take immediately the flight and you will see me never back again.
Looking at me. Wow. He didn't say, no, let me keep quiet. I think there's two parts to look at that, isn't it?
Yeah.
The one is just he's literally threatening his team.
Do you think he's threatening his team?
Yeah, and he even said South Sudan. Like he's basically saying they're not the best team in the world.
I guess.
So he's giving them a threat of like, come on, guys, right? On the one hand, which is maybe a cute way of doing it. On the other hand, by the way, the Man United manager also did something similar when he played only 2 games. When he was the coach for obviously for only 2 games, and he said, if I lose. This is his very first team he coached. And he said, if I lose the 3rd one, I'm gone. And they won the 3rd one. The flip side of it is, honestly, why is he putting so much pressure on himself? Because even if they don't qualify, there's a clear upward trajectory of Bafana in the last 4 years or so. Am I right?
Yes.
And he's doing better than the mess we've had before that. So would you really want him to walk the plank?
I hear what you're saying. I think perhaps for me, I'm seeing it from a point of view that he's trying to say, listen, I've literally done my best in getting this group of players ready to qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations. If they don't qualify, surely I must have failed one way or the other. Not that he's a bad coach. He's just saying, listen, I've done my job. But if it doesn't work still, then perhaps I should just let it go.
So he's trying to motivate his team to say,
perhaps.
Don't let me go. Unless one of the guys says, well, actually, I know a travel agent. Because he said, I'll go to Belgium the same night, right?
Yeah.
So I know a travel agent. We can book a flight to Belgium. No. I hope it never comes to that.
Hopefully
anyway.
not.
No.
Well, still staying with football, Mamelodi Sundowns will be the first of the South African trio in this season's group phase of the African Club competition to get their campaign underway this month. Sundowns will host Maniema Union from the DRC in their opening Group B match at Loftus Versfeld on the 26th of November. Kickoff at 6 p.m. Orlando Pirates also play their opening Group C match on the 26th of November, but a later kickoff around 9 p.m. and they start away at CB Belouizdad of Algeria in Group C. Stellenbosch, who are through to the group phase of the African Confederation Cup at the first time of asking, began their Group B fixtures away in Bamako on the 27th of November. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. We need
to get the coach, the existing coach, before he leaves, so let him stick around. Okay, well, yeah. Okay, more sport tomorrow.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
The South African government has implemented economic reforms to address challenges in energy, logistics, and the visa regime. State-owned entities like Eskom and Transnet are driving economic growth and job creation. Working with business, government has managed to transform energy supply, enabling private investment in electricity generation. We have had more than 200 days with no load shedding, enabling our economy to grow. Transnet has reduced port congestion, allowing South Africa to benefit from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, building and transforming the economy. A message brought to you by Government Communications.
Svali Weekend on a high note with Final Analysis on Sunday night. Tune in to Final Analysis every Sunday night and stand a chance to win a hamper worth 10,000 Rand, courtesy of Diadora and SABC Sport. Final Analysis, the premium wrap-up show, giving you match highlights, final scores, post-game reactions, expert analysis, and sport news weekend roundup of the local and international arena. Catch Final Analysis every Sunday at 8 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and 10 p.m. on SABC 3. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We've Got It All. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, UCT Business School, by the way, being featured in our feature we called Winning, coming up around 10 to 6. Don't miss that. Jimmy Muyaha hosts the SAFM Money Update, Markets Update rather. Jimmy, good chatting to you. Now, moving markets, multi-choice. Tell me about that.
Good evening, Ashraf. Good evening to the listeners. Yes, MultiChoice gave us an update on their performance for the 6 months starting their new financial year. The company has been going through some challenges trying to increase subscribers following a big decrease in subscribers last year, but they've also been battling technical insolvency issues. So we're going to speak to the Chief Financial Officer of the business, try and understand where the business stands now and what we can expect from them. Obviously, they still have that Canal Plus deal that is up in the air. We don't know where we stand on that, so we're going to see if we can get an update on that deal as well. Then we've also got a conversation with Premier Group around their 6 months for the same period ended September 2024. We're going to speak to the Premier Group CEO, Kobus Gartenbach, to get a sense of how they've been faring. It seems like they've been doing quite well on the revenue side and on the profitability side, so we're going to get a sense of just how well that is. Then we've got a conversation with the team at My Broadband around the proposal to shut down South Africa's broadband network. That's got some serious implications on how you and I communicate on a daily basis, especially when we think about things like the Centec and ICASA objectives that they all have in place, and we know that that stems beyond just radio and other communications. We're going to dig into that and see what those implications could potentially be from a business perspective and from an economy perspective. And then we've also got a conversation around the unemployment numbers. Those numbers came through today. You spoke about them a little earlier on. The unemployment numbers down a little bit for the first time in a year. We're going to look at that. We're going to see what's been driving that and whether or not that's something we can expect to continue going forward. And then because it is Tuesday, we do have a property feature on a Tuesday. We're going to be taking a look at a very interesting tale of a client that had to fight her bank to keep her home despite having paid up everything and corrected some issues and things that were there around that particular home. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look into that case and see if we can make sense of it and see what's been happening there. But what has been happening throughout the day has been the markets having another bad day. It looks like it's 2 for 2 as we start off this week, and it is across the board. Asian markets all in the red, European markets all in the red, South African markets all in the red, US markets all in the red. Currencies weaker. It just doesn't look like a good day anyway. So let's start with those Asian markets. The big loser there, Hong Kong down almost 3%, with Shanghai down 1.4%. If we look at European markets, the CAC 40 in France down 1.6%, the biggest loser on the day there. The DAX down 1%, and the FTSE in London down just under 1%. Our own markets all share down 2/3%, with the top 40 down 2/3% as well. Resources and industrials flat for the day, and no surprises here. Industrials and financials flat for the day. Resources being the big loser here, 3.5% in the red, off the back of weaker platinum and palladium pricing that persists. $950 an ounce is where we are for both platinum and palladium. $1 this way, that way on either side for the markets. Brent crude, $72.50 a barrel, holding steady, not doing too badly there. Don't think we'll get fuel price cuts anytime soon, because looking at the Rand's performance, 18 Rand and 13 cents against the US dollar. At some point, we were at 17 Rand just a couple of weeks ago, so now we're back north of 18 Rand and 13 cents. Against the British pound, 23 Rand 15. 1 euro will cost you 19 Rand 23. 1 Australian dollar is at 11 Rand 85, still below 12 Rand there. I suppose that's the only thing we can really be happy about. The Bitcoin price, $86,717 a coin. Ethereum, 3,256. Interestingly enough, Bitcoin is currently at around 1.57 million Rand for a Bitcoin. It was higher than 1.6 million Rand at the start of today. So I'm going to keep an eye on that and see if that will reach the 2 million Rand mark for a Bitcoin before the end of the year. But that's what we're going to be looking into a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Yeah, and listen, your quick line that you end up with. You've been playing on this markets features. What do you want to talk about today?
We are taking a look at raising capital.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, there are many ways to do it. Quick summary of it, I mean, it's quite self-explanatory that raising capital from a business perspective is going out into whether it's a debt market or an equity market, to say to investors, hey, give us some money, we're going to do some stuff with that money, and we'll give you a return on that investment. What's interesting here is that there are different forms of capital raising in the form of debt capital and equity capital, and those are vastly different in terms of some of the conditions that come with that. It might be easier to raise one than it is to raise the other, and we'll look at the pros and cons at another time, but it is important to know that there isn't one source of capital raising, and companies do it for various reasons at various times through various things like preferential shares, like debenture structures. Again, we will get into the nuts and bolts of that, but in a nutshell, you can raise capital in many ways.
Okay, now we do know. Thanks for that, Jimmy. You enjoy your show 6 to 7, and that's followed by sport and a whole lot of other current affairs shows coming up after that you should not miss. Let's get to some of your thoughts.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Right, unemployment, minimum wage, big discussion. Akona in East London. Go ahead, hi.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good to talk to you. Go ahead, thank you.
Good. I just want to talk about the minimum wage.
Yeah, please.
I'm just one of those who are not. We are really not in line with this minimum wage thing. I don't think it's really pushing people to work. This minimum wage thing, and also it's not pushing business to employ more people.
So you would support the dropping of minimum wage? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Okay. The reason why I would say that I would prefer dropping that minimum wage is because normally business doesn't base that, because it seems as if we're taking a figure just from the air, not basing that on business profit. Because if you're running, let's say, for example, you're running a spaza shop, how much money are you making? Is that money able to make you pay the person that you're employing? If that person who's have got that business is unable with the money, with the profit that he's making, to able to afford that person, that means that person, even if that person can take that minimum salary, the minimum wage that person can give that person, that person cannot work for that person. What I would suggest is that maybe the government, because already there's SARS, and these businesses are registered to SARS, and they know how much they earn this business. If you have a system like that, and then the same money that you're giving to people that are unemployed, then you can subsidize those people who are willing to employ those people, who give them the salary that they can afford, and subsidize those wages.
Okay, right, Akona, thanks for that input. You see, now the flip side of that it comes from labor movements, and it comes from other civil society groups to say, particularly in a deflated economy where there are so many people who want jobs and there's not enough jobs, when you remove minimum wage, then business naturally knows they can pay you less. So if the standard is 10,000 rands, for example, and there's no minimum wage, but there's not 5 people for the same job, there's now 100 people for the same job, they know now they can drop it down to 5,000 and that person will take it. That's the flip side of that. Now, the flip side is that at this point in time, the longer people remain outside the working environment, the more it doesn't just cost them money because they're not earning anything, but the more it affects and impacts upon their own morale. And when people's morale is impacted, it hampers their psyche, and that is very difficult to turn around, okay? So that's the other side of it. So, I mean, there are different, and there could be more than those scenarios, okay? Thanks for that. I certainly welcome other thoughts on that, original thoughts, minimum wage or not minimum wage. In Frontline KZN, go ahead, hello.
Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, good talking to you.
Good.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Before I go on the issue of unemployment, let me go on the issue of the SABC bill.
Okay, very, very quickly, I'm going to push you because of time. Go ahead.
Okay. The issue of funding trade is a long-time issue which was discussed in the SABC media policy debate of 1990. And the thing is, funding should come from us as voters or the public, and also from the advertisers.
Yeah,
and
but the point is, say it's not enough, and the SABC has to carry certain things that is not commercially viable, but they have to carry it anyway because it's the only organization that can reach the masses. So, for example, there can be a funeral that may not be very, very popular with big numbers, but they have to carry it. If they don't carry it, nobody sees it, but when they carry it, nobody's going to sponsor the funeral. I mean, that's the sort of thing. In Klantla, we need to move on. Just give me 30 seconds more about one other comment. I need to move on.
Okay. With the issue of unemployment, the ANC must be honest. With this thing of the tender system that they've created, they must also be honest with that and say how many jobs they've cut through that.
Okay, well, clearly they haven't. I mean, I think that the facts are there. The facts are there for all of us to see, right? And Ntanta, thank you for your time, right? So we're going to chat now to Dr. Catherine Duggan, who's the director of the UCT Graduate School of Business, in a feature we called Winning, right after this.
Our role must be to seek to build a better world.
SAFM invites you to our annual public lecture, delivered by former Minister Dr. Naledi Pandor. The theme for the lecture is 30 Years of South African Freedom. Reimagining South Africa's democracy, achievements, challenges, and the road ahead in protecting our democratic gains. The lecture will take place on the 21st of November 2024 at the Birchwood Hotel and Conference Center. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
Today, I'm part of seeking to build a better South Africa.
SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's talk about winning in the UCT, winning in terms of the business school specifically. They've been recognized, well, often for its tradition of academic excellence, right? But now this time round, the Varsity's MBA program has been ranked number 7 globally. So that's significant. And number 1 in Africa by the 2024 Better World MBA rankings by the Corporate Knights magazine. So first things first, I suppose, pat on your back, Dr. Catherine Duggan. Thanks for your time, and well done to you and your team.
Thanks very much for having me on the show. It's wonderful to be able to bring good news like this to your listeners.
Well, I mean, the whole plan in this feature is exactly that, by your impact to inspire others on the same. Now, let's talk then about the impact of this to UCT. How important is this? And I'm saying that because, you can get, this is a ranking by Corporate Knights. Now you can get ranking, and some of them carry more weight than others. How important is this one?
So I think the most important thing about this ranking is really that it shows what we're already doing. As I'm sure all of your listeners know, and as all of us in South Africa know, we are really leading the world in a number of ways, particularly in thinking about what the future is going to look like. And what I see this ranking as doing is really demonstrating what we're doing in our programs and at the school throughout all of our programs. So really, it's an acknowledgement of excellence, and that's what makes me, and I think all of us at the UCT Graduate School of Business, so proud of this accomplishment.
So when you say we're leading in understanding what the future would look like, would that be, when you say leading, would that be the UCT MBA program leading, or would that be South Africans leading? Just to get clear about what you mean.
I think it's both. Obviously, what we think of ourselves as doing at the UCT GSB MBA program, and again, across all of our programs, is really reflecting back some of the excellence that we see across not only the country of South Africa, but across the entire continent. So South Africa really is leading the way in so many ways as we think about sustainability, and particularly as we think about the integration of economic growth and economic sustainability with climate change and all of the other UN SDGs. And as we're thinking about that in our programs, we are really reflecting some of the things that we know in South Africa and in Africa, where we're years ahead of the ways that some people, especially in places like the United States, are thinking about what sustainability means and how to bring that into business education.
Okay, now when you say we years ahead, I'm just trying to understand and think about a skeptic listening to us from wherever. It's like, really?
Well, let me give you an example. Because we've had water crises and electricity crises, every single organization in South Africa now knows the kinds of water usage they have, the kinds of electricity usage they have. That has meant that everybody is thinking and rethinking about how we use our resources. Whether we like it or not, that's meant we're all thinking about things more sustainably, or at least thinking about sustainability, thinking about the way that we use resources in ways that some of the people in countries that haven't had these problems have never been forced to think.
Okay, so out of adversity comes innovation, and in those fields we are far more innovative than the rest. Now that of course links back to a business school that thrives on innovation, isn't it?
Absolutely. What I like to say is that if you do business in Africa, you are doing business in hard mode, which is effectively, as your listeners probably know, when you play video games, you can choose whether you play on easy mode, on regular mode, or on hard mode. And if you're playing on hard mode, you're doing all the same things, but you have to be faster and smarter and more agile. And that is what our companies are doing in this country and on this continent. The fact that people are always thinking about how to make the best of what we have, about how to lead through adversity, about how to manage complex environments, that's something that people who have grown up in this environment and companies that are operating in this environment understand better than companies in some much more developed and much less volatile areas.
So I hear you, and I mean, it's very convincing, except I would ask yourself that then why then are we still so low when it comes to global competitiveness? I mean, in some areas better, I know, but overall, I mean, we're mid-table and lower mid-table nation when it comes to that, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, you will forgive me because my bias is always in management education, but I would say that the simplest answer to that question is the way that we've seen real competitiveness, not just in places like North America or Europe, but in places like Singapore as well as in places like Rwanda. As we are really thinking about how to shift into the future, what we need is to educate not only our children, but also our managers and also our executives and leaders, so that we can imbue a sense of how to grow, how to build, and how to use the resources that we have as well as possible to build our organizations, to build our country, to build our continent. So the simplest answer I can give you to your question is we need more management education, and we need more people coming into programs like the MBA program at the UCT Graduate School of Business.
And what happens if one doesn't do an MBA program but still wants to succeed in business? I mean, it's contradictory, but how do they get ahead?
So there are all sorts of things that you can do. Many of them are short programs and other things. But for somebody who doesn't want to do a program at all, I think the most important thing is really to keep your mind open. The best thing that I can tell anybody is to always think about what they could do. How do I make this better? How do I make small things better every day? As well as how do I put together all of those small things to make big things better? Thinking strategically, thinking about, again, how to use the people, the processes, all of the things that you have at your disposal in order to make your organization run better, in order to really take advantages of opportunities that often present themselves as challenges. That mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset, that intrapreneurial mindset is absolutely key to having every organization, again, in the country and on the continent, work better. And you don't have to have done an MBA in order to have that mindset. But I will tell you, an MBA and other business programs do really well to both foster that mindset as well as to put you in touch with a network of people who are thinking about things in that way as well.
Well, that's a good point about this, the power of that network. Perhaps in the minute or so we have remaining, tell me a bit more about what you do in terms of the modules that are on offer and why you think you've been so accepted globally.
Terrific. Well, we have an MBA program that has 3 big courses. We call them framework courses. One of them is business and leadership in global contexts. One of them is managing complex environments. And one of them is strategic decision making in changing environments. And inside each of those big framework courses, we talk a lot about things like the politics and economics of the African continent and of the world. We talk a lot about strategy, and we pull leadership all the way through. And it's really the power of putting all of those things together in a very applied, very dynamic pedagogical setting where people are having debates, we have constant engagement, discussions, and case studies, as well as project-based learning. Putting all of that together really helps our students to see things in different ways, and it helps us, again, to take advantage of all of the things that our students know, having grown up in and having spent their careers in challenging environments. So we take advantage of what our students bring to the classrooms, what our faculty, who are world-class faculty, what they bring to the classrooms, and we put it all together in what is a world-leading curriculum. And I'm so glad, again, that globally we've been recognized for the cutting-edge curriculum that we provide.
Okay, listen, we're on to news time, but I'm going to just steal 10 seconds, okay, for you to answer this, right? How do we link business purpose to the national purpose? 10 seconds.
What we need is to have everybody come together into a narrative of building. We have the talent in South Africa. The question is, how do we move forward together? And we need to have public, private, and everybody else moving together toward our common goal.
We should have another conversation, I'm sure of that. Dr. Catherine Duggan, thanks for your time, Director of the UCT Graduate School of Business. And we talked to her because their MBA program has been ranked number 7 globally, number 1 in Africa for the year at the Better World MBA ranking by Corporate Knights. Now, love talking to winners. Thanks for your time, Catherine Duggan. Much appreciated. And on that winning note, let's get the news now. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. In this news update, call for action over SA's water crisis and the Tshwane Mayor speaks on city's finances. Good evening. Political parties have called for urgent intervention to prevent a full-scale water scarcity crisis in the country. The Water and Sanitation Minister, Phemi Matshodina, delivered a statement to the National Assembly. She says there is enough water in the country provided citizens start treating it as a scarce resource. Voter vessels from the FF Plus and Makashule Ghana from Rise Mzansi say the country is facing a major crisis.
We need urgent intervention, Honourable Speaker, because day zero is a reality. For many, many years, we survived load shedding, but we can't survive without water.
The light at the end of the tunnel is the light of an oncoming train coming at full speed down a damaged line with a driver absent from the controls.
The Tshwane Mayor, Nasipa Moya, says they're urgently working to restore the city's finances. This comes as the municipality struggles to collect billions of rands owed to it by residents and businesses. In an interview